back to another episode of Collector's Quest. I'm Tyler here with Johnny. Johnny, what's going on? Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. How's it going?
Oh, it's going well. How's the new year treating you? We're actually on January 1 here.
Well, you're on January 1. I'm on January 2.
My new year was nice. Just hung out with a few people, let the kids run around, but had to bail out early because my wife worked the next morning and had to be up at 5 a.m.
Wow.
You know, that's like old people New Year's. But I was up well past midnight. What about you?
You were talking to me, so yes, I was up. I was watching the new Lord of the Rings show.
But the viewers don't know.
I know, but you know I was up. You and your fake questions. I was talking to you.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm going to say, oh, well, Tyler was awake. What do I got to talk for you? Should I shove my hand in the back of your shirt and like move your head around? Like, what do you want me to do here?
I had a great New Year's, John. We spent the whole day just watching the Amazon Lord of the Rings show, and now me and Ada are watching the Game of Thrones show. It's been a lot of new fantasy TV shows. They both seem pretty good. If you watched Lord of the Rings show, you seem like someone who would have watched that.
What does that mean?
You like nerdy pop culture bullshit? What are you talking about?
You look like someone who would like Lord of the Rings. It just feels very judgy.
Well, okay, let's say this. On a recent After Dark, you may have picked Lord of the Rings, one of them, as like top 5 best movies ever or something.
I mean, yeah, of course I watched it. And yes, I am nerdy. I just felt a little offended, maybe a little seen. I didn't like it. No, I thought the show was fine. I thought the outrage about it was pretty overblown.
Which outrage? The political outrage or
the political outrage? Like a black elf. I was like,
sure.
Okay, I guess. I mean, it's also fantasy. They're like I can't. No, Tolkien never had a black elf. I was like, well, I mean, also there was never elves, so that's a thing.
There was also outrage over its how well it follows the book. Like, apparently they only got licensing for like the notes that came in addition to Lord of the Rings instead of the Silmarillion, whatever it is. I love it because I don't give a shit about any of this. Like, I like Lord of the Rings. I have no interest in becoming like a Tolkien historian because like it's one of these shows where it's like, oh, they mentioned something about this. Let me look into the history of that. And like if you look into like the Battlestar Galactica or Star Trek wiki, there will be a short history of something that gets mentioned in passing. You go into the history of this Tolkien shit, it's like, here's 400 years of all these names and places, and it's just like I don't care. I care about what happened with the Frodo and the ring and the rest of this shit. You can change all of it, and I do not care.
But there's so much more. Like, people don't understand, like, Lord of the Rings is the third age, and then there's the first age and the second age, and there's technically a time period before the first age. Lord of the Rings history is a lot.
Oh, there's a fourth age, too. Don't forget the fourth age.
You know, yes. What there is a lot of history, because Tolkien was a fucking madman. He was a madman. Like, he developed his own languages for all this, because he was like a linguist and just a weird scholar. Like, this in any other time would be considered the diaries of a madman. I love it. I love the appendices. I love the Silmarillion is like, it's a tough read. It's a really tough read. And, just going into the outrage thing about like, oh, it wasn't exactly like the books. Yeah. So they didn't have the rights to everything. So there was some weird moments, like stuff that they allude to and dance around. So it's kind of like, I guess this is a rights issue. And you just wonder, because they got approval from the Tolkien estate. It's like, why didn't we just go all the way here? Why are we doing this? Also, the timelines are condensed, but like, obviously it would have to be. Like, you can't follow the whole life of an immortal fucking elf, okay? It's just, like, it wouldn't make sense. Like, they're trying to make a cogent narrative, and, you know, it's not like the movies follow the book one for one either. There's, like, things that are excised and, you know, condensed, and that's all fine. It's, you know, it's fine. I thought it made like a pretty good narrative show. I didn't hate it. I thought there in the beginning it was a little light on the action.
No, I like that.
But most
I fucking hated the Hobbit movies, and I'm like, whoa. All the CG budget went to like these big sweeping city shots and the backgrounds of conversations, and it's like, oh, there's no stupid CG troll battles. This show is looking up.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was one of the criticisms. It's just like, okay, if you're trying to hook a large band of people, I'm like, okay, maybe we could have done with a little more action. I didn't hate Galadriel. I didn't hate who they picked for her. She's actually one of my favorite characters in the series. So I thought it was fine. I have not finished House of the Dragon though. I'm like 4 episodes into that.
No, I'm only like 2 episodes in, so don't worry. But
okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, Johnny, do you know what?
Exciting new year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been fiction. You know, I mean, usually I
got a segue.
I'm not going to say I hate everything on TV. Oh, you're trying to segue us? Okay.
I was going to segue us. Do you want me to?
Yeah, let's go ahead with the segue. It's a better idea.
So, okay. So, Lord of the Rings, became cool in the mid 2000s?
That was my segue as well. I was going to make the same segue.
Okay, yeah, okay. We're there together. You know what else was cool in the mid 2000s, Tyler? A whole bunch of stuff we're going to talk about here.
Was collecting video games cool?
No, not actually. It was
Is
not cool
collecting video games cool?
Probably not. Collecting investment, items though, alternate assets is pretty cool though.
That's probably the least cool thing.
Is it?
Well, I mean, if you look at the, there are 222,000 people subscribed to Reddit Game Collecting, and 221,500 of them really hate sealed games. So no, it's not cool, Johnny.
No, it's not. Okay. But if you did collect video games in the mid 2000s and and you were like, uploading that JPEG of your whole room very slowly to the internet, there was a few things that collectors would pick out and be like, oh man, that guy is cool. Look at this good stuff he has. Look at all these good things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the cool things, or the things that other collectors thought were cool in the mid 2000s if they saw it on your shelves.
Yeah. I love that it's a new year. We're looking back, 15 years in the past, kind of like 17 years in the past, something like that. Because that's when I started collecting, mid 2000s. That's when you started collecting, I think, even a little bit before, like 2004 or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, 2004, but really ramping up in 2006. So yes,
yeah,
we came in right around the same time.
Yeah, and game collecting was very different back then, and I think it would be a fun trip to the past to talk about the things people were into back then that they maybe are just like have completely fallen off the map. If nothing else than to remind people that like what is the coolest thing will not remain what is the coolest thing. Looking at Poop Slinger, not that anyone thinks Poop Slinger is really the coolest thing, but stuff like that.
Yeah, your 9.8 grade sealed Halo, maybe that won't be the coolest thing, or maybe it will still be cool in 10 years. But this stuff, a lot of it has really fallen off.
I mean, yes, a lot of it has fallen off. So I will say I made a big list of, I asked a few people what they thought, like what their memories of what like the coolest stuff to have in the mid 2000s was. A lot of this is based on my memory. And then one of the best resources for just going through stuff from the mid 2000s. Yeah, Digitpress. I'm not going to call it Digital Press. I know some people get on my case about that. I called it Digitpress my whole life. I don't care about the store. I care about the video game website. But yeah, videogamecollectors.com has multiple archives of people who uploaded pictures of their collections. It's just this amazing resource because once like in the Instagram, YouTube age, like there's a million game room tours of game collectors rooms from, like the 2010s and 2020s. But there's all these amazing early archived collections that are all on this one website. And it's on Internet Archive. Like we don't have to worry about it disappearing forever. But it's so cool that all these like older video game collectors have like dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds have uploaded pictures of their entire collections.
You know what I would like to do? I would like to do the same thing, but go through the old like EGM room of Dooms from like the mid 90s.
Oh, I didn't even think about doing that.
Yeah.
Well, you're just making it look like we didn't do enough research for our show now. Well, we did specify the time period as mid 2000s because that's when we started.
Because we can revisit this and then we can talk about the 2015s, what were cool, and then how that all changed. And then like, I just saw a picture of like a cool room, and it was a lot of WATA stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, things are changing.
Oh, yeah. Man, we've said it before when like WATA first became a thing, but like shelves of graded games just do not look good. Like there's like reflections. You can't tell what anything is. Like all the games are like smaller than the cases, so everything looks weirdly spaced out. It's not good. Like looking at especially at these old rooms like in 2005 and stuff, like I see like there's just like basements and wood grain panels and stuff haphazardly stacked. Like it's a lot cozier than looking at a shelf of graded games.
Man, there was so much wood grain.
There was so much wood grain. I mean, you see like wood grain in a CRT, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the stuff. That's what I want to see.
That's the good stuff, right?
In a retro game collection.
Some people I hate that wood grain so much. I hate it. But
yeah, I don't like wood grain at all. All right, Johnny, let's start out. This is in no particular order. I have it divided into games, stuff, unusually popular consoles for the time, and then just some other observations that I saw going through these old collections. Johnny, no, it's going to be of no surprise that 15-ish years ago, like, NES was on top of the world. If you were collecting video games, you were collecting NES. There was a subset of people, notably from, like, the Atari age persuasion, that would stop collecting at NES and collect everything before NES. But for the most part, you either collected only NES or you collected everything, including NES, I think.
I think that's right.
And that means that the undisputed king of video game collecting was Nintendo World Championships, and more specifically, Nintendo World Championships Gold.
Oh, absolutely. That was the coolest thing ever.
No one would even dispute that. I think that might be the most popular answer still today. I mean, I don't know. There might be different groups that pick something different, but I don't think like everyone collectively would pick something different from Nintendo World Championships. So it probably still is on top of the hobby, but I don't think it is as much on top of the hobby, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get you.
I mean, there's thousands of people now who would say like, oh, well, obviously the sticker sealed Super Mario Brothers is the best thing ever. When like 15 years ago, 10 people on planet Earth thought that sticker sealed Mario Brothers, which hadn't been discovered yet, I don't think. They thought that was like the coolest thing ever, but yeah, everyone thought Nintendo World Championships was the best. Famously,
man, that gold one.
Dream TR went and found like 8 of them or something, like a ridiculous number of Nintendo World Championships. The gold ones, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he anyway.
I think he found grays because he found winners, right?
I think he did both.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it was both.
So, I mean, Nintendo World I don't think there's anything to say about that. I didn't see any of them in collections, but I mean, like, people knew who had the Nintendo World Championships golds.
There was a list. Remember, on Nintendo Age, there was a list if you had one. You put in your name, eventually you got a little icon, and people will be like, oh, they posted their collection back on, like, page 2 of, like, this, like, there in the Nintendo Age one, that thing got to be, like, 300 pages or 150 pages or something ridiculous. Yeah. And you could not go through the whole collection anymore.
And yeah, and like people know who have the Nintendo World Championships now, but like it was a different. It's not like the coolest kid on the nerd forum. It's like people spending tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000 on this shit now.
It felt more playground-ish, right?
Like, a little bit, yeah. It was like having a shiny Charizard back then. It was like having the best shiny Charizard. It wasn't like having like, oh, life-changing money.
Yeah, like, look at all this shit I can afford. It wasn't like that.
One of my favorite anecdotes that you can still find in Internet Archive is an Atari Age for sale thread. It's from DreamTR. He is selling Nintendo World Championships Gold and sealed Atari 7800 games in the same thread. And they're rare sealed Atari 7800 games, but the fact that you wouldn't even have a dedicated thread to sell a Nintendo World Championships Gold, the fact that it would be sold on a forum at all, just not casually, like it's the best thing. It's a big deal that it was being sold, but it's the craziest thing in the world that it wasn't like an exclusive thread dedicated to it.
That is kind of insane when you think about it. You're like, oh yeah, that was, I guess, fine.
Yep. The other
I
NES,
guess that's fine.
I think other NES rarities, you tell me. So, I mean, Stadium Events was obviously also super hot, was nowhere near as expensive as it is now. I thought that the unlicensed stuff was cooler back then. It might be because more people collected unlicensed games.
Oh, no. Unlicensed stuff was cooler, but specifically, like you have listed, the Pan-Asians. Like, because even if you weren't into all the Sachin stuff, like, oh, you've got those cool porn games, those are sweet.
Yeah. Panesians, which The Panesians are Hot Slots, Bubble Bath Babes, and Peekaboo Poker, which were porn games sold in like the saloon doors of like video rental shops. They're super rare, super desirable, always have been. I think there are plenty of video game collectors who do not even know they exist anymore.
I mean, so to give a little, like, because I looked for these for a time, and I always was like, man, they're so expensive. Maybe I'll buy them. They were always like $1,000, and I don't think they've gone up much.
That's the nuts part. Like, you're right. I don't know what they are now. I'm sure that they probably cost a little bit more than $1,000. But yeah, this is one of those things that like has not gone up significantly in price because it was always so highly priced compared to the rest of what you could buy in terms of video games. One of the most not surprising but like outlier heritage auction sales that I remember, it was like a sealed Hot Slots that went for $7,800 or something. Like sealed. Like, who has a sealed Hot Slots? I'm pretty sure Josh Byerly now owns a sealed Hot Slots. I think like Daydream and Davy sold for more than that. So
which is insane.
That's where the state of the sealed market is.
Yeah.
Unlicensed games do not have the cachet. The other things I would put here, Myriad 6-in-1, obviously, like absolute one of the top unlicensed games. A lot of people considered it a distinct game from Caltron 6-in-1, which I think people still pretty much do. But the Myriad 6-in-1 is a lot rarer. I think that's maintained a lot of its price. That still sells for many thousands of dollars. Caltron 6-in-1, I remember being not as cool as Myriad. Caltron 6-in-1 was a cool guy game. Because this was before they found the cache of them in Mexico. And now Caltron 6-in-1 is like relatively affordable.
Yeah, I mean, I think Flintstones too kind of had the same thing happen with it. I mean, it's still very expensive and cool, but I think it had a little more cachet until they found a bunch in South America.
I think the thing with Flintstones is the box in South America was different, or the cartridge back was different, and you could swap the backs.
Yep.
I don't think you could replace the entire complete in box game. I don't remember what it is. I'm pretty sure my copy came from South America and someone like swapped the correct back on it or something.
Well.
Yeah. So yeah, the cartridge market for Flintstones was definitely flooded by that. I think that game is rarer than it probably seems, even though it is already accepted as like one of the rarest NES games.
Yeah, I mean, it was always like, okay, it was Stadium Events, and then the next tier down, you hit Flintstones 2, and then there was a tier down after that.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't remember caring about Flintstones 2 back then.
No, it was a completionist thing.
Yeah. See, I was not anywhere near to completing the NES state. I was like just starting collecting games. So what always hit me was I always thought the unlicensed stuff was cooler because unlicensed in general was rarer than licensed NES. So looking at like those myriads, like Action 52, I thought was super cool. Like Action 52 has the coolest story, being a $200 game and 52 games, and they're all horrible. It's amazing. I don't understand why you think it's terrible. I've always thought Action 52 was fucking awesome.
It just does not do anything for me. Never has.
Tengen,
like never.
Johnny, Tengen Tetris.
So cool and rare.
Top of the world. People thought it was rarer than it was, one. But people also mostly considered it to be the best version of Tetris, which I find really interesting now because of the competitive Tetris scene. I think, I mean, this is a generalization. Most Tetris players would play NES Tetris over Tengen Tetris now because that's where the competitive scene is. And Tengen Tetris, like playing it, like its gameplay value, like obviously it's a great version of Tetris, but it has fallen to the wayside because it never became the version of Tetris. And it kind of used to be the version of Tetris.
Yeah, I mean, it was the collector's Tetris for sure. Like 100% too.
I mean, it's still probably, you know what? I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure the complete box sells for more than NES Tetris just because it's so common. But, Johnny, what does the sealed market say?
I don't know. You can check.
I don't care.
Oh, you don't care. All right. Never mind then.
What you really, our listeners don't care. Tetris, Wata. Let's see. What do the investors think? The more common Nintendo game or the rare and exciting Tengen game? Holy fuck. Oh man, you can get like a decent Tetris for like $800. Tengen Tetris is definitely going to beat it. Okay. Oh, perfect. Johnny, in the last couple months, 2 copies in the same grade have sold. So an 8.0A Tengen Tetris is worth $3,000, and an 8.A Tetris is worth $600.
Which is weird. It's because it must be just because it's Tetris, because that's a Tengen game, and who gives a shit about that?
I mean, it's cool. It's always been kind of cool.
All right.
In the world where like video games costing in the thousands of dollars is still like somewhat novel to me, like I don't know, it still seems crazy to pay that much for Tengen Tetris.
What I think is interesting is that like some of the old school collectors from back in the day, you know, they got caught up in this sweep too. So they being in the market have made games that I think traditional investor types, like that's not the shit they're buying, but because these old guys are in there buying up the stuff that they still have this memory of being cool, it's kind of affected the market. I love when I see stuff like that.
I think it's the most interesting thing is when that kind of quote unquote old school stuff doesn't have any price premium. So there was I made fun of this a long time ago, but I think in 2021, a KO Flying Squadron sealed sold for like $4,000, and like after you factor in the shipping and the buyer's premium and all that, the seller sold it for like less than they could have got for a complete in box copy.
100%.
And then there's all these rare PS1 games like Tail Concerto and like Team Buddies, stuff like that literally barely sells for more than complete in box price sometimes. It's I mean, there's definitely, I think it's probably console specific, but there are definitely collectors that are just like, yeah, I'm not interested in graded sealed stuff. I think PS1 is definitely a console where like the collectory games do not sell for high premiums.
Yeah. All right. What else do we have on this list? What else made you cool, Tyler?
I wrote mega rare Atari stuff. You could just probably change that to mega rare anything. If you had something and it was like, oh, no one has this. It's the weird computer console. It's an RDI Halcyon, and they made 10 of them. And because you can own something that they only made 10 of because not many people collect video games, I have it and I win.
Yeah, I mean, and then the information, the ability to go learn about these things and procure one was so bad and limited, you know.
Yeah. Like, you would hear, like, there would be stories about people buying, like, an RDI Halcyon. If you don't know, an RDI Halcyon, I don't think it was ever even officially released. Like, there are very, very few RDI Halcyons in the world. This is a very obscure video game console, and it had 2 games made for it. But you would like, go and read a story about someone who found one at a garage sale. Like, oh, hey, guys, I went to a garage sale, and I found the rarest video game console ever made. So, it was
good day for me, I guess.
Yeah. No, I'm going to definitely have the coolest post of the day in the what did you pick up today thread. But beyond that, we talked about it before, but people judged games based on rarity, and more or less the system was based on the Digitpress Rarity Guide, which assigned a rarity value to essentially every older game, like around N64 and older, had a rarity value assigned to it. Some of these might have come from like Atari Age, which had its own rarity system. But you would say, like, a game is an R7 if it's uncommon, or if it's an R9 if it's really rare, or if it's an R10, it's like a Nintendo World Championships or a Myriad 6-in-1, something almost unobtainably rare. And if you had those R9s and R10s, you were the coolest. And that was really all that mattered, because you know what didn't matter? Super Mario Brothers did not matter.
Sure did not.
All that stuff.
If you wanted a Super Mario, you could just go get one. No big deal.
Yeah.
Man, I like, once we're done talking about this, I want to paint pictures of some of these rooms too. So, like, word pictures, so people can really experience what it was like. I encourage you all to look at some old rooms of Dooms. But it's amazing that, like, they're just like, there's some persistent things in there that we'll mention here that it's hilarious looking at them. And this the Nintendo stuff is like, you know, the Nintendo stuff, like, while was there and was like cool stuff, but it wasn't always the prominent thing in the game room, which is interesting, because the game rooms, I'll just say this, they were always so much messier than they are today.
So much messier, yes.
They were so much messier. Like, they were just like stacked on floors, in corners. Like, I've got like 10 CD spindles, a bookshelf that came from like my parents in the 70s. It was just like, it's crazy the way it looks compared to like how people have like cleaned it up now. It's a lot different.
Atlantic Oscar shelves are like kind of old flat pack media furniture because who needs media shelving anymore? But these pictures are from before even that was popular.
Yes.
And like people weren't going specifically to IKEA to buy 10 of the same shelf to house their game collection. So it's very haphazard. Lots of like closets full of games, and boxes were stacked like horizontally on top of each other. Like in terms of keeping condition, like the worst way that you could stack boxes. And every other collection is just like, oh yeah, here's like 15 complete in box Game Boy games just stacked on top of each other. And like,
and a row of consoles, like boxed consoles. Everybody had a row of boxed consoles.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's amazing.
Also, just since we're talking about it, going through these rooms, not every game was like in mint shape. Like you might see in some Japanese collections. I think Japanese collectors are a lot pickier on condition, but for like, you'll go through the collection of someone who's clearly just buying random stuff, going to garage sales, getting deals. They have like 75% cartridges, 25% complete in box stuff. Very normal collector. Like most of their boxes are in near mint shape. A lot of boxes were a lot nicer. And that's only 15 years ago. And it just makes me think of like, how many boxes have we lost to storage and shipping problems? And we're losing more every day. Just, it was a lot nicer to get nice stuff back then. Or it was a lot easier to get nice stuff back then.
Yes. Like incidentally. Now you're
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to try.
Buy something. Well, I mean, if we're going back even before, like, there was a point at eBay, which not all auctions had pictures. So you were gambling. They'd like someone just say, yeah, it's nice. And you're like, okay, it's nice. I'll buy it. It's complete. Hope it works out. And you just rolled the dice like that.
Johnny, I'm not that old. I don't go back to like the auction web days.
No, this was eBay. This is like eBay 2003.
Okay, well, I wasn't buying stuff on eBay back then. Like back then, like the concept of putting a credit card into a website was probably still like crazy to me.
Taboo.
Like,
taboo.
Whoa,
like you were still sending money orders.
Yeah,
like whoa.
Oh yeah, I sent some money orders on forums. Like,
yeah, you better send me a postal money order. None of these weird money order bullshit. It has to be a postal money order. Is a thing you would hear a lot.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, money orders. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
you forgot
Another reality of doing transactions in the mid 2000s. Sometimes sending postal money.
Like sometimes, if you sold something, you would just get an envelope with money in the mail, and you're just like, oh yeah. Like also, like people like, oh man, shipping is so slow. There was a point in which you had to wait for someone to ship you the money before you shipped them the game. Like, and then making deals on the internet, like, oh, who's shipping first?
Oh,
like,
so much.
Like you sending money for, like there was like a big debate. It wasn't just like, I'll PayPal you the money and I'm protected, so I'm not worried. It was like this. Oh my god, I could totally be fucked here if I get this wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
not that still can happen, but it's a lot safer now than it used to be.
Definitely, and I mean a lot more transactions happened on forums. I think. I mean, obviously. A ton of it was still eBay for 99% of probably video game transactions that were happening online, but I bounced around between GameTZ, which was a game trading forum, Digit Press, which was a collector's forum, Nintendo Age when that started in 2007, Atari Age, and then Neo Geo is a thing, but we've talked about it, but I didn't really hang out on Neo Geo. But yeah, making a lot of deals just made in forum threads. And like, if you look back on the deals I made, it's insane how little we would transact for. Like, I would buy a $4 game with $1.50 shipping, so like $5.50 shipped, and someone would send that. And I was like, worth someone's time to send that? Like, there's no way I would sell a game for $5 a day. I'd just be like, it's not worth my time going to the post office. Or I'd be like, oh, you're my friend. I'll just send that to you for free. What are we doing business over $5.50 for?
Yeah, the other thing, like, man, there was so many computers. Like, it was always a room, and there was just like some shitty computer monitor, and then like a CRT would be shoved somewhere still, like because that's what people still had was just CRTs. Man, the 2005 era, like we're calling it, the mid 2000s, it was a much different time. presentation was so much different. Like, I can't, like, going back to some of the photos, I can't remember that it was this different, but it was. It just was a completely different time. And then another thing to consider is not everyone had cameras attached to their phones at all times. Like, this wasn't a thing. Like, you hoped someone had a digital camera and they could upload a picture. Just because they had a digital camera doesn't even mean they had a way to post that to the internet. It was a much different time.
Yeah, I'd say, not a lot of thought given to presentation. Lots of just games sitting on shelves. And when people would take pictures of their collections, I think a lot of people took the games off the shelf and like set them on their bed or something so you could see all the games facing up. And this is kind of interesting because people don't do this anymore. Unless they have like, this is my sick collection of PC Engine shooters and they're all worth like $300. Like, then you have people who like, here's all my awesome games. But you'd have people with like a shelf of, 50 NES cartridges. But then when they take a picture of it, like they spread them all out because they're proud of each individual one. And I feel like it's so easy now to have such a large quantity of games because when you factor in modern games to the equation, like Xbox 360, we talked about at Portland Retro Gaming Expo, there were bins and bins of $1 Xbox 360 games. So buying 20 Xbox 360 games is not really anything special. If you're buying, the most common, the Halos, the Assassin's Creeds of the world. So no one would ever take a picture of those, like, kind of face up at you. No. You'd just be like, check out my collection of video games. There's 200 games on this shelf.
Yeah. Like, the other thing is, today, presentation and, like, making it Instagram worthy and all of that has become such a thing. Like, dirty ass rooms. Like, you just like, they wouldn't even clean that room. It would just like be a plate and like a pack of cigarettes sitting there and just like, I can take a picture of this. You're just like, what is happening? Like half-eaten hamburger. It's like, you could have done some cleaning before you snap this picture, dude.
Like yes. The thing is, going through these collections, like I recognized a lot of names, so I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but it's like,
no,
dude, you're not even gonna like clean this shit up off the floor. It's like really, really haphazard. You look like a hoarder.
Yeah, it's like, you can imagine those games got stepped on. Like the dog came in and just like, man, I have anxiety looking at some of these things.
I mean, I've got my rooms that my areas of my house that look like I'm a hoarder, but I don't take pictures of them.
No, God.
Big props to the people who do take pictures of them, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm a hoarder. I admit it. I love that.
My room, I look a little hoardery right now because I'm like cataloging stuff. So all of my bins are in here, and it's a little bit much.
All right, Johnny, some other games. I don't know who said this, but QVC Maximum Carnage, did we already talk about that?
I mean, we've talked about it a lot. I don't remember seeing it in the mid-2000s.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware of it. And for clarity in this time, I was collecting loose NES, Sega Saturn, and like that was really the big stuff I was collecting. I was mostly collecting US Saturn and then loose NES. And then, I mean, I'd pick up everything because I was going to flea markets. I was going to garage sales. Like going up and down the rows at flea markets, probably an average of at least one vendor at like my local flea market. One vendor would have a box of NES cartridges. Finding stuff on top of that was always a bonus, but it was so easy to find NES cartridges. And I think that's a big reason that everyone collected at least NES cartridges.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal.
Atlas games. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of Atlas love. There still is. People definitely like those, the lower print niche publishers.
Yeah, I mean, that's, working designs. All that has been popular. A thing that was more popular then was like pins and patches were more popular. You'd see those things.
Those Atari patches, Johnny.
Yeah, man.
If you don't know, Activision, for all the Activision Atari games, if you hit certain score thresholds, they would physically mail you a patch after you send them a photograph proving your score. The problem is they make repros of them now. I don't know how to tell when you have a real one, but go get that Atari patch collection.
If you know how to do that, then cool. I don't know how to authenticate those.
So they shipped, I forgot if it's a bubble mailer or a regular envelope, but they come with a letter of congratulations. So if you get that patch with the letter, and those are out there, I don't think that, like, those are rare, but I don't think it's like completely unobtainable. But yeah, go get those letters, Johnny. That makes you really cool.
I'm getting a letter right now.
I know I know how much you love mail and Atari games.
Yeah, I love them.
Popular genres, like the genres that really had value, JRPGs, because RPGs always hold their value, shooters like 2D shooters, and fighting games, mostly because of how much like Neo Geo and some like arcade stuff and maybe some PS1 games. I think that's kind of all the same as it is now. Like,
yeah,
RPGs hold value, and then the games that you could play in short bursts, people really like those. I put this, you didn't even know what these are, SSI Gold Box games, Johnny.
I'm not sure what this is. What is this?
So, not a lot of the collectors on Digipress collect PC games, but for some reason, I always saw people have these games. The SSI Gold Box series, it's a huge series of RPGs for like Commodore, Atari computers.
Is this? There's like Dungeon Dragon games. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm here now. I got you.
They're just super common. It is like, if I was going to find computer games at a flea market, like these stand out because they have like a beautiful box and they're just really common and you'd see them all the time. So I feel like looking through people's collections, even if they didn't collect computer games, like I might see like 3 SSI Gold Box games on their shelf. It's just something I always noticed.
Yeah, no, I do recall these now.
And Johnny, our meme game that we put last here, Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner 2, which
I think this is later than 2000.
Yeah, this was probably more early 2010s that everyone had these. Yeah. And I know exactly why. It's because they were clearanced out on Amazon for like $20 or $25, which is exactly where I bought mine.
Yeah, I don't have one.
I sold mine. Actually, I kind of gave mine away. And I like regret it because I kind of want it for the meme now. What is that worth?
It's probably, I'm going to guess $100.
Yeah, it's probably worth more than I would ever want to rebuy it for. If you don't know, this is the Shin Megami Tensei game that comes with a black and white plushie with the little guy in a suit.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it has any
box.
Yeah. Oh, but they're still for like $150 now.
Yeah. That makes sense. Whew. Don't buy it. He's a little black and white dude. He's got fangs, like, you know.
Yeah, I just remember this must have been like all over, like Cheap Ass Gamer. That was a website people went to for gaming deals. I bet people still go to that. But like Slick Deals, I think this was on sale for a long time, and just everyone collecting games was like, "Oh, the Shin Megami Tensei limited edition for $25. I'll get that," and then everyone ended up with it.
Yeah, see, and I said, "Oh, I should grab that," and then I didn't, and then now I'm sad.
All right, Johnny, going into just stuff that was cool or I saw in game rooms all the time. The fucking lunar puppet from
this thing is so ridiculous.
From the PlayStation 1 lunar. Was this a pre-order bonus?
I think so. Was it from PS1? It wasn't the Sega Saturn one? Or the Sega CD one?
No, honestly, I only think that because so many people fucking have it that it has to be from the PS1.
It has to be PS1, yeah.
Yeah,
but
and
everyone has this fucking puppet.
It's
so
from Lunar
ugly.
Complete. It's I don't remember who it is. It's like one of the guys that joins your party in Lunar. He's got the cone sticking out the side of his head. It comes in this weird round packaging. And everyone has it. I don't understand.
You can't, it's impossible to store. You can't stack it. It's the worst.
I'm sorry. It's so ugly that it stands out. And it's impossible to stack and store it. So it's always on the top shelf. So you always notice when someone has this. I bet, like, I would still notice this. Like, it would immediately stick out, like, oh, they have this stupid lunar puppet. Like, because it's always going to be on the top of the shelf because it's so annoying and, like, awkward.
Yep. Hey, if you want one, you can still get one for under $50 or $60.
Great. Get that old school cred with the lunar pre-order puppet. Did they make like 1 million of these? Like, why are there so many of them?
And the best part is it has like this big band, like promotional item. This is not for resale. Like, who is going to get by on reselling this?
I mean, it was probably because they were given to stores and they didn't want them to sell them.
Yeah, probably. It's so ugly. I mean, is it Galleon? Is that who it is?
That's the character, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny, I put NES M82, and this is mostly because I bought an NES M82 in 2006, and like I thought it was the absolute coolest thing on planet Earth. If you don't know, the NES M82, it's a demo unit that holds 12 Nintendo cartridges unless you select between them. And then it will run the cartridge for like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then reset. Honestly, the most interesting thing about it is that it's an NES and it has a custom ROM that plays a little intro. It's like a little star field and it says like any NES something, and then it just plays your game. But that's it. You might have seen them in the Pat the NES Punk video. And now if I looked at it, I'd be like, yeah, it's a demo unit. There's a bunch of those. I think the M8 is cooler, which is a Nintendo demo unit that has built-in games. I don't know. It's just not my thing anymore. But I remember thinking it was the coolest thing. I sold mine a long time ago.
So that's how cool it was that you got rid of it.
It was just too bulky.
What do you do with it?
What do I do with it? I was like storing it under my bed. Like, what do you do with a demo unit?
True.
Honestly, something that has not changed. I think a lot of people with like kiosks and demo stuff and hardware, for the most part, look like they don't really have room for it. Like a lot of people like kind of shoving this stuff in their garage, or they have a game room full of it, but like that's the only thing they could fit in the room because it's not like a warehouse. It's just like a room in their house. And there are like some uber rich guys, like The Last Gamer, who built like a giant outbuilding just for his game collection. He has room for kiosks and stuff. The rest of us regular people, I feel like a lot of us don't really have room for this kind of stuff. And then NES M82, not that big. All it is a box. It's like you can almost think of it like a really big Laserdisc player. It's not like some enormous kiosk thing, but like still, what am I going to do with that? It's just a box.
It's hard to store.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look great.
Yep. Anyway, this is something that could have only happened in 2006. I was sitting refreshing eBay new listings. Like I would just go to video games and refresh new listings and just be like, I don't know, let's just do this for an hour, see if anything cool or underpriced comes up. Just like digging through all the NES slots, like, oh, maybe I can find the Stadium events in this NES slot. Oh, this slot has Rockin' Cats and they listed it for $20. Hell yeah, I got a Rockin' Cats. And I saw an NES M82 listed for $500, which was a fuckload of money back then, but I think it was worth around $1,500. And I was like 14 years old or something. So the prospect of getting something for $1,000 off, I was obviously over the moon. And I was working at like Burger King or a ski shop back then. So this is the first time I had the money to like buy something like this. And then I got rid of it after like, if you can go find like embarrassing forum threads where I'm like talking up how I'm like the coolest fucking guy in the world because I bought this.
Yeah, I would like to dig these up.
Yeah, I was a stupid kid. I hate that stuff is archived on the internet, but Johnny, thank God I'm not a kid now and I have all this social media shit archived because all my embarrassing stuff is on game forums and I could live with that.
Yeah, it's much worse now. Now that's like cute and quaint, and the stuff today is like horrific and questionable.
Johnny, the Sharp 19 SV111 TV, the NES TV that had a built-in Nintendo.
I hate this thing.
Holy shit! Did people think these were cool? I never liked these, but this was definitely a cool game.
It was, and I hated it. I hated it so much. Hated it.
So it's just a small, I'm guessing it's 19-inch based on the model number. I don't know. It's a small TV that has an NES cartridge slot built in and controller ports, and it comes with unique controllers. The awkward part about it is it's on like this plastic base. So each of the four corners of the TV has a thin plastic foot that sticks out, and they're always broken. So how cool you are is judged by how many intact feet you still had on your TV. 4 intact feet, you're a really cool guy. 2 intact feet, you're not that cool of a guy.
How horrific a measurement is this?
It's so weird, yes.
Man, that thing's got all 4 feet. No, gross.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because it's a unique thing, I guess. Like, again, this comes back to me not having room for hardware. I guess this is a very functional, cool, rare thing. It was never for me, though.
Okay.
World of
Oh, man.
Nintendo cabinets, Johnny. Holy damn. If you were like a high-end Nintendo collector, you had a World of Nintendo cabinet. And that's probably still the case. I just think that the bar for what constitutes quote-unquote high-end Nintendo collector is probably raised.
Yeah, I also have never liked these.
So if you don't know, like you went to a KB Toys or something back in the 80s or 90s, all their Nintendo stuff would be in branded World of Nintendo cabinets because the Nintendo section of the store was called the World of Nintendo. And there's this whole line of official signage and official cabinets that the merchandise was stored inside. So people had real World of Nintendo cabinets. They were more common back then. And obviously all the World of Nintendo signage that goes along with it. And people like the look of them so much that they would make reproduction World of Nintendo cabinets. They would just either build a cabinet from scratch or get a similar cabinet and put World of Nintendo branding on it. People loved this shit. You might say people like it so much that Stefan has like 5 or 6 of these. And these cabinets now, they're like $4,000 each.
Yeah, they are still beloved. People still think they're cool. I've never been into it. I'm going to tack on neon signage to this. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but like if you had one of these cabinets, hopefully you had a sign to go with it. That was definitely cool guy points back then if you had like a cool sign. People still like signs. They still go nuts for them. It's still not a thing for me.
Yep, it's not for me either. I mean, I just need all my room for games, and I know you're exactly the same way. I've wanted a World of Nintendo cabinet. I think there was a point where it must be the same time around when I purchased Earthbound. Because the reason I purchased Earthbound was I like thought to myself like, oh, all the cool video game collectors have Earthbound. I should get an Earthbound. And then I also must have looked for a World of Nintendo cabinet around that time, like very casually. And I realized like the only way I was really going to get like a nice one was like driving across the country, or at least driving across a few states and spending a lot of money. And like, I just didn't want to deal with the hassle of moving like a fucking 30-year-old cabinet. It's probably a piece of shit because I know it's going to be like a thing that was in a retail setting and all the pictures are going to look nicer than what I'm actually going to end up picking up. So I'm going to drive like 16 hours to another state, get there and be like, oh, this thing's kind of a piece of shit. And I'm going to pay this guy $1,000 for it now because I drove all this way. So I just never ended up doing that.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you on this one at all.
I don't know about this one, Johnny. I put Red Tent, Nintendo arcade cabinets, and PlayChoice 10 arcade cabinets.
I think those were like more obscure, but if you saw one, you thought it was cool.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely. And so I was also on KLOV, Killer List of Video Games, arcademuseum.com. And people had, obviously, Nintendo arcade cabinets there because they're arcade collectors. But I think you'd also occasionally see Nintendo arcade cabinets bleed into video game collections. I guess it's going through old photos now. I guess what really stands out is that people sometimes just had like 4 arcade cabinets sitting on the side of their collection, whereas the modern equivalent you would see someone with like arcade 1-up cabinets.
Or a kiosk.
Yes. Those arcade cabinets that you bought 15 years ago were literally cheaper than arcade 1-ups cost now, especially like the nice premium arcade 1-ups getting to like $700-800. Like arcade cabinets were like $200-300 for like shitty ones, not for like, you're not going to get like a restored Donkey Kong for that, but they were not that expensive in the mid 2000s.
No, people were definitely trying to get rid of them.
Yep. And I remember Red Tents had a premium because they were like the cool Nintendo thing.
Yeah. It was like, oh, those are rare and those are neat.
I mean, not super rare, but Red Tents, if you don't know, it's a triangle shaped arcade cabinet. It's like you sit down at it. It's at like stool height. Yeah, it's tent shaped. And there's a game on each side. And you could play Nintendo versus games in them, which meant that each player could have their own side, but they're playing the same game. Really cool cabinet. The problem with it is that if you think of how much room you need for an arcade cabinet, it's a lot of room. And when you need room on both sides of the arcade cabinet to actually play, a Red Tent is a very small arcade cabinet, but the actual floor space it takes up is enormous, which my modern brain thinks of like how much floor space something takes up before anything else, because that's what I'm always running out of. So I would never own a Red Tent.
Same.
Johnny, we brought this up. Speaking of arcade
So many
cabinets,
times. Love these.
Coleco
So cool.
mini arcade cabinets. I'm sure they had a name, Coleco tabletop, whatever. These are the
It's your
little
Frogger here.
LED
Donkey Kong.
recreations of arcade games put out by Coleco in the 80s. Oh my God, these were
So cool. So cool. If you had these, and the battery pack. You know what I didn't see a lot of though? I don't remember seeing a lot of people having them in boxes. They may have had the boxes, but they had this stupid thing. They were out in display. They had to show that shit off.
Loose. I mean, you have to imagine that like a lot of these are out there loose compared to complete in box. Who the fuck would keep these boxes? Are pretty big. Like who would keep these? It doesn't make sense to keep them.
No, it doesn't make
when
any
you got
sense
it for
to keep
Christmas
them.
or whatever.
But also, if you were going to display it, you wanted to show off that sweet cab.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is kind of the equivalent of like the arcade 1-ups, because it's like the fake arcade cabinet that looks like the real thing, but like it's cool. That's like, hey, I've got Donkey Kong sitting here on my shelf. How cool is that?
Man, I had a Frogger as a kid. I loved it. Loved it.
Yep. Also, a prominent part of the Angry Video Game Nerd set is he's got like 4 of these sitting behind him, and has for like 15 years now.
I can't remember if I had Frogger or if I had Frogger, because I had like 3 LED games. Or I think maybe I had the Donkey Kong cabinet and Frogger was like this yellow, like lengthwise. I can't remember which was. I remember having Frogger and Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I think I had a Pac-Man, which I no longer have, and now I have a complete Donkey Kong, which I got because they used to be really cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of LED games, like going through collections, you'll notice LED games just kind of sitting around. Sometimes you'll see people with boxed LED games, and I feel like that is something like very much, if I just looked at a random person's game collection, I would not expect them to have like a 1980s LED game in box sitting there.
Yeah, and we're not talking about the Tiger bullshit either. We're
No.
like old, like pre-1987 LED games.
Yes. I when going through for this episode, I remember specifically seeing a Puckman, which was one that we brought up on the show, which was like it's a really shitty big yellow plastic Pac-Man game.
Yeah, there was a lot of them. There was so many. Every kid had, like, you wound up just getting like, oh, you like video games? Your grandma would somehow get you one for Christmas. And you're just like, okay, I guess.
Yep.
And,
I got mine, Invaders from Space, I believe it was called, which I think it's a pretty common LED game, but I remember getting it at a garage sale. I love that thing.
Nice.
Guess what, Johnny? It's Space Invaders.
Oh.
Could you believe it?
Shocking.
Johnny, prototypes.
Yeah, this was like a big cool guy thing. I still think I still think people find them cool, but you would definitely, like, someone would highlight the 1 or 2 that they had. And they just felt a lot more common back then to just be in random collections.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, if people had like their cool shelf, like a lot of times they would have a prototype on it. I think there was, I don't know where the prototype people hang out anymore, but assemblergames.com was like the big, like weird video game stuff forum. That's where they discuss like review copies and beta code and prototypes and like all their weird development hardware, things like that. I went there a little bit. I didn't hang out there as much because those people were super hardcore about that kind of thing. I think the interesting thing about 15 years ago was some of this stuff was like so dirt common. Like it was, imagine it's 2006, 2007, PS2 is just dying out. You have people buying up like old developer stock. Magazines go out of business and people buy up the magazine stock. That's what Dream TR was doing. You could go on Assembler and buy like grab bags. I bought grab bags of like PS2 review copies, and I've got like a stack of like 40 games. It's just like random PS2 review copies, and like it's not all retail code. I've got like review copies. They've got like level selects and stuff in them. I've got like an incomplete copy of Valkyrie Profile is the best thing I got at the time. Like that was it's a beta copy of Valkyrie Profile, and I bought this as a teenager.
PS1 or PS2?
PS1.
Wow.
I bought this as a teenager. Like I could not have paid over $100 for this. So
pretty cool.
Yeah, especially disc stuff. There's so much of it because like you could just copy a disc, and like there was so many of this stuff out there that a lot of this stuff was really easy to get. That's not something I remember people highlighting in their collections. It's really, if you had a cartridge, that's what was really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any
it's just on your cool shelf.
Johnny.
I don't think I have any anymore. I have some retail copies, but no more prototypes.
My biggest regret in this is my local-ish video game store. This wasn't even that long ago. This was in the past 10 years. They had 3 NES prototypes review copies, whatever. It was like Conquest of the Crystal Palace is the one I remember, and then 2 shittier games than that. Like, I know Conquest of the Crystal Palace is already not an A-list game, but they were like $100 for the shitty ones and $150 for Conquest of the Crystal Palace, and I'm like, no one cares about those games. Fuck that. I probably should have bought those, Johnny.
You probably should have bought those, Tyler.
Johnny, did you put the next one on?
I did. I put these next 2 on here, and this is stuff you would just see in these rooms. Like, I'm not gonna say this made you a cool guy, but it was just like some cred in there. It was like a minor thing, less about being cool, but you definitely always saw them. Video game trash cans, Tyler. There was like some Pac-Man trash can or that Mario tin that everybody has. They were definitely around.
What? Yeah, the officially licensed Nintendo trash can. It is such a staple. Were people getting these from flea markets? Is that why they were so common?
Yeah. I guess so, but they were just everywhere. And I always remember, they're always like rusty looking and gross.
Yeah, they always look like shit. They look like shit, even if it was in mint condition.
Yeah, I'm like, I never want, I'm just like, I'm not putting that trash in like, that's a trash can that belongs in a trash can, not in your house.
Yes.
So
100% agreed. I'm not on board the video game trash can train.
No, but they were there. And then this one speaks to me, and I've almost bought it several times and for some reason managed not to, and I don't know why. But it's that giant Mario 2 mug. You know which one I'm talking about?
No,
it's gigantic.
Oh, you're talking about the glass one. Yes, like the pint glass.
Yeah, it's gigantic. It's more than a pint. It's huge and it's heavy. And they're still around because it was such thick glass, it would be impossible for them to break almost. No, I'm sure we've lost many at a time, but that was always like a thing in a game room. And like sometimes you'd see a guy like in his picture trying to like fake like he used that to drink out of, but it's so cumbersome, that's not true. But normally it housed pencils or coins or something. Like it's just a staple. So I wanted to highlight those 2 things, not as cool guy items, but things you definitely saw in the cool guy game room. Because if they have all the cool guy shit, they definitely have these 2 generic items too.
I think in general there was more merchandise in older video game rooms like this. And that might just be because modern video game merchandise is so bad. Like, I guess, like, even having, like, a sheet of Nintendo stickers from the 1980s, like, there's some coolness factor to having that. Whereas having, like, even all the pre-order bonuses of Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and, like, is not that exciting. Like, the most exciting thing you'd get for a modern game is the limited edition, which is not super exciting usually. And like you can get like GameStop signage, usually that kind of thing's available. So I think I see a lot more like plushies and pins and mugs and the Pepsi can that has Mario on it and things that all over.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I mean a lot of new stuff too, like that would normally just like wind up in like flea markets from collector's editions are now just kept in the box because everybody thinks everything is a collectible. Yeah. So you just don't see these random tchotchkes just everywhere because they're in the box set they should be in.
Yep.
So, but hey, speaking of random tchotchkes, Mario toys, Mario is back on Happy Meals. So just so you know, Mario toys, maybe we'll see some of these in 20 years.
I drove up to New York for Christmas. A 14-hour drive, by the way. Traffic was horrible. No one wants to hear about traffic. But we did stop at a McDonald's, and I saw that, and I'm like, maybe I should get a Happy Meal. But no, I don't even know what the toys are. Don't run out to McDonald's and get McDonald's toys. Like, you could buy any McDonald's toy from the past 50 years because they made a billion of them. Like, literally a billion McDonald's toys are out there.
Think about every city you've ever been in and how they all have 2 McDonald's, okay? That's how many of these toys they made.
Yeah, and it's not that people get them as collectibles and keep them sealed and just have them forever, which they do and is a reason there are so many out there. But when the promotion stops, there's a lot of boxes left over somewhere, and those sealed boxes of toys get somewhere, and there's just new old stock of these toys left over from the thousands of McDonald's franchises. I don't think people need us to tell them that McDonald's toys are dirt common, but how are those McDonald's Pokemon cards going as investments?
I have no idea.
I'm going to look at McDonald's Pokemon cards. You think they've crashed?
No.
You can get a full set of 25 of them for $15, Johnny. And that's a buy it now. So that's overpriced.
So that's 5 Happy Meals, though. And they're what, like $5 each? So, man, you're making some money back.
What? Oh, why? Did it come with a pack of 3?
Well,
I don't know. Johnny, I don't know how the McDonald's Pokemon thing went. That's just something I remember. That was the latest craze where people went and bought like 50 Happy Meals because every Pokemon card becomes super valuable.
Man, remember like the Beanie Baby?
Yeah, that's
like from the Beanie Baby
the
one.
Only thing I would think of is the teeny beanies. That wasn't like a collectibles phenomenon. That was like a nationwide phenomenon.
Yeah, that caused riots.
Yeah.
Anyways, we can move on from that stuff, and we can get into our unusually popular consoles, Tyler.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that these were like specifically popular to collect, but these are consoles that when looking through old game rooms, you just start noticing like, oh, everyone kind of has this, or like, like a third of the collections I'm looking at have this. And when I'm looking through a modern collection, like maybe no one would have this.
But that was like what I was saying. Like back in the day, collectors just had rows of consoles, and then you would just see this stuff.
Oh, and some of this, I mean, just in terms of like games too. I mean, we're talking about consoles here, but my first thing is like Atari games. I think the average collector now, I know the average collector now does not collect Atari games, but random people stuff like the guys, like going to flea markets, going to garage sales, i.e. everyone, occasionally you just find some complete in box Atari games, or you definitely find Atari cartridges, which were nearly as common as Nintendo games and even cheaper. Like 50 cents an Atari cartridge is a pretty common price. So you always see that stuff. And even for a generalist game collector now, I think the average cutoff is NES, which, I mean, makes sense. A lot of people just don't like Atari games, and they don't have a lot of recognizable characters.
True. So what, aside from an Atari console, what were some other consoles you would always see? What were the cool guy consoles?
All right, so cool guy consoles, Johnny. NES top loader. Oh my God, cool. Did people think the NES top loader was cool?
It's the opinion on that has done such a 180.
Fuck the NES amazing. Top loader. What a piece of shit. And the dog bone, the controller that the NES top loader came with, is a piece of shit controller too.
Ooh, fighting words. People love that dog bone.
Oh my God. So the NES top loader, it's the redesigned NES. So 99% of NESs that were ever made are like the VCR version that you see everywhere. And then they made this was like in like the early 90s, they re-released the NES, and it's half the size, and you put cartridges into the top of it so they're sticking straight up. And the big benefit of this is that the pin connector that actually reads the cartridges was much better at this point. It didn't have the finicky connector of the original NES consoles. So for all these dirty ass flea market games we were buying and not cleaning, because we were all idiots back then, they would work the first time. You wouldn't have to blow into your cartridges. You wouldn't have to fiddle with like pressing the cartridge up and down. It would just work. And people loved this. Except it only had RF video out, so it looked like trash. Or you had to mod it, which was like expensive and not as easy to do back then.
And people did it. They're like, oh man, we got to get this, and now we got to mod it, because this is the best Nintendo of all time.
And the other thing it came with a dog bone controller, so shaped like a dog bone. It has rounded edges instead of the, like the original brick NES controller edges. And it has a really good D-pad. The D-pad like sticks up a good bit from the controller. It just feels really nice to use. The problem is the buttons, they're facing the wrong way. So you would hold a controller, look at your thumb. It's at a diagonal, right? The A and B buttons are at the opposite diagonal. So you have to like claw grip the controller from the top to lay your fingers across the buttons, which is so stupid.
No, it's for competitive Tetris players that use the claw grip.
It would literally be the best NES controller if not for like this glaring ergonomic flaw. So I used to think it was the best, and then I'm like, what am I talking about? I play games where I hold the B button and then press the A button, and this just does not work.
You know, I can't really argue with this assessment of the dog bone. It did feel good in your hand, though. And people did think it was cool.
I wish it was better, but now I'm like 100% against it now because I'm all about ergonomics. Johnny, both in an more popular, like more common to see than I expected going through these old game rooms, and in terms of how much it made you a cool guy, Neo Geo AES.
100% cool.
So
certified cool guy stuff.
One, like certified cool guy. Neo Geo games, always expensive, always rare, always had the weird cult behind them, which I'm firmly not in, just because I'm not a fighting game guy, and that's the main genre that Neo Geo deals with. But is it just the rarity? Is it just because rarity mattered so much more?
I think so, and it was like, I think it was the aspirational console of a lot of people who were from that era, right? Because they had an NES, but they were like, could never afford that Neo Geo. And now they're on this, like, I could get a Neo Geo, because like you used to hear tales of the Neo Geo and how you're like, oh my God, the same thing that's in the arcade. It's arcade. It's a real arcade in your house. The Neo Geo must be amazing. And then you're like, there's only 14 games or whatever. And they come out very sparsely, especially in America. But no one ever told you that side of it. It was just the fucking Neo Geo. Can you believe it? It was just like an item of lore.
You see, I guess it wasn't there when they advertised it to the people who wouldn't be able to afford it. Like, you'd have to be like a teenager in the early 90s to really be like, yes. Oh, Neo Geo. Oh, but I can't afford it.
Yeah. So, you mean when I was a teenager?
Yeah, exactly. So you were there and you remember that. I remember the first video game magazines that I ever got as a kid. It said, like, they'd have the strip at the top that tells you all the consoles it covered. And it would say, like, TurboGrafx and Neo Geo and 3DO. And I would just be like, huh, wonder what those are. And I never put a second thought to it. I'm like, what's a Neo Geo? I don't care, because I read this entire magazine and literally they covered nothing about Neo Geo. So,
yeah.
But yeah, also just like, I can't believe how many complete in box Neo Geos I saw going through old game rooms. Like, even when people had like 4 games, because the games are really what's hot on Neo Geo. Like, the consoles, a Neo Geo console is not the most common thing in the world, but you can get one. But like, the hot games are, no one can get Neo Turf Masters or Kazuna Encounter or whatever.
Metal Slug. Was it Metal Slug 2? That's the hot one. I think they're all expensive.
Is there a Metal Slug 3? Metal Slug 3 is the best Metal Slug, I'm saying. As someone who does not know anything about Metal Slug, but I think I played Metal Slug 3 at MagFest once on an AES, and I specifically remember going like, oh, holy shit, I can't believe I'm playing a real copy of this game, because it must be so fucking rare. Johnny, I bet there are plenty of, I bet people know what Neo Geo is, but like, who cares? I mean, you have to have cared about it 10 years ago, 20 years ago to still care now, I think. I don't think there are going to be any newborn Neo Geo collectors or anyone who cares at all.
I mean, there will be, but just not very many. There's just no reason for it.
There's no reason, and there's no supply, like...
Well, and to authenticate is all, like, there's real authentication services for it, like, it...
Yeah, because there's,
for
like,
the Neo Geo is so expensive.
Mostly the same PCB as what was actually used in Neo Geo MVS arcade cabinets, so it's, like, conversions, i.e. fakes, are easy to make. Just what a pain in the ass.
Yep. Not for me.
When people talk... I just feel like just shitting on Poop Slinger all the time now. Pun intended. When people talk about like how rare something like some modern limited edition is, or even like some graded game, Pop 7 right now. Oh, it's so rare. If rarity was all that mattered, that Barbie's Horse Adventure on 3DS, what the people are paying thousands of dollars for like Barbie Horse Adventures on 3DS, whatever that last 3DS game is. Shouldn't like half the Neo Geo stuff be rarer than whatever that is? If rarity is all that matters, why aren't you collecting Neo Geo, where literally half the games you could buy for the system would be like a rarity showpiece on a system as common as 3DS?
No idea.
Just collect 3D. If you care about rarity, this is the console for you. Because, yeah, like, if you get into PC stuff, you could go get stuff that literally no one on planet Earth has. I found, I was browsing Goodwill the other day, they had a sealed copy of the history of Carlos Santana. It's not on eBay, it's barely on Google. I could be the only person on Earth to own the history of Carlos Santana from Microsoft Windows. It was $9.
Did you get
But
it?
who fucking cared? No! But some people will say like, oh, but there's so much software and there's no central licensing authority, so none of it really counts because there's no set. So fuck PCs. Get into Neo Geo. There's a central licensing authority because all the games are made by SNK. There, go get that set, and everything's rarer than your fucking rare 3DS and PS4 games.
You feel better?
Right. What?
I said, do you feel better?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. Fuck modern games. Go get Neo Geo.
Yeah.
I say as someone who doesn't care about Neo Geo in the slightest.
Yeah, you like the guy I know who, like, one of the only people who cares about Neo Geo less than me is you, and you're like, go get Neo Geo. What the fuck is happening?
If your metric for how collectible something is rarity, what are you doing collecting PS4 games? What is Demon Pit? I don't even know what Demon Pit is. I know what Metal Slug 3 is. That game rules. That game should be worth $10,000. No, it shouldn't, because I could buy an entire arcade cabinet for that.
I'm like, you should stop taking crazy pills.
the shitty Sega Genesis things, the JVC XI and CDX.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare
call it shitty. People cared about those.
I still care. Okay? The JVC XI, I'm a champion of. I love that thing. How dare you?
Yep. Anyway, if it just sounds like we said a bunch of letters, it's because they named them really stupidly. The JVC XI, it was a Sega Genesis with a built-in karaoke machine. Really
and Sega CD.
Well positioned for the US market, and thus very common.
Also, it was a Sega CD player.
I'm sorry, yes, and a Sega CD player.
How dare you?
Cool, very cool. Costs like $1,000 now, probably more to get one of those complete in box. Like, they're still very desirable, but I think like...
And still excellent. It's still the easiest way to play a Sega CD game that's an official console.
Why isn't a CDX the easiest way? Because I could carry that around in my pocket because it's very portable.
Because they break.
Oh, okay. All right, well... Sure. Well, you know what? I still don't think a JVC XI is the easiest way because finding one and paying for it with hundreds of dollars is not easy.
I mean, a CDX. I mean, all this stuff you want to assemble. You're like, okay, I'm going to go. I think we did it. Yeah, I think you can buy like a basic. If you're not looking for an in-box copy, I think you can get them for like $350 or something.
I mean,
so if you go buy a Sega Genesis, have to find a working, like a Genesis 2 and then like a Model 2 Sega CD, because you don't buy the first one because that thing is always broken. And then like all the wires and stuff, I mean, you're probably going to be around the same price.
I bet there's better repair documentation for like a Model 1 Sega CD for everything that could possibly go wrong with that. So rather than rolling the dice on a 30-year-old piece of hardware, just buy the one you know is probably going to be broken, and you're going to fix it up and clean the lens and replace the belts anyway.
What if they don't make those parts anymore, though?
No, a lot of that, you could swap out like rubber bands and stuff for a lot of that drive, for the broken drive things.
Yeah, a lot of that thing was broken drives. But what a piece of shit.
Johnny, the Vectrex. I'm just the Vectrex
oh my God, so
in general. Why did people like the Vectrex? It is an incredibly unique and novel thing. I understand it. There's literally nothing on planet Earth that's a Vectrex. It's the only...
You know why? You know why?
Why?
Because it sucks.
It fucking sucks. The Vectrex has always sucked. It's
Hey,
horrible.
all you Vectrex people, shut up. No, no, it is not cool. I just like people would be pushing this thing. They just like share their collection. They're like, check out my Vectrex, and I'm just like, I hate this thing. I hate it. They're like, oh, but look at the overlay. Well, no, I don't care. This is awful. This is awful.
Of course, the Vectrex is a home vector video game console. It's a tiny little, like, 9-inch vector monitor. Maybe it's 12-inch in a vertical orientation. So it's like a tiny little arcade cabinet. Looks super cool. It's very cute. It's a vector CRT monitor, which is a distinct type of monitor that, like, you know, draws lines. It looks like the Asteroids arcade game, or, you know, a Tempest, whatever vector game you could think of. The only problem is, like, every game I've played on Vectrex sucks. And it has this stupid pop-out controller, and I think it has 4 buttons in a row.
So dumb.
It's playing games. So this could be just my non-familiarity with, like, the full Vectrex library. But all the Vectrex games I've played are, like, simple early 80s arcade-style games. What the fuck does it have 4 buttons for? Anyway, maybe this is a situation where I need to go and play the entire library because I'm sure it is not that big. And don't come at me and say, oh, you can't emulate the Vectrex when you play it on a computer. You're not getting the real experience. First of all, I've only ever played real Vectrexes because they always have them in the MagFest Computer History Museum. And I play them every time it's there. I play different games. And every single time I'm like, man, still haven't played a Vectrex game that's any good.
And you have to imagine, people aren't bringing the shitty games. They're bringing in the games they think are the good ones.
Yes. So yes, Vectrex definitely made you cool. What's the, there's like that one rare Vectrex game that's like one of the rarest games ever made.
Is it Bingo or something?
No,
or
that's the RCA Studio 2. This one's like, oh man.
Oh,
I just want to bring this, Mr. Boston. I just want to bring this up because this is like, this is a game that you would see on like rarest video games ever. That would, like a genuine
Mr. Boston
like cool
showed
guy
up a
game.
bunch, yeah.
Mr. Boston's Clean Sweep. I don't remember the story behind it, but in 2007, it sold for $860, which was probably like the most expensive game ever sold. And then in 2010, a loose copy sold for $7,200. So something happened between those dates. I don't know what. I'm getting that information from RacketBoy.com. You know, something from the mid-2000s, I think Racket Boy was like one of the best resources for like, just like an early, just like getting a primer on like what the most collectible stuff is out there.
I mean, and they're still kicking. They're like, he's updating those guides. They're still around.
I think there was a time where Racket Boy like really wasn't updating stuff, maybe in like the early 2010s. But yeah, he's updating his articles now.
Yeah, there was I want to say it was like from 2015 to like 2020. Now he's suddenly back.
Yeah. Which is good because when you search for like rarest games or like the most collectible games or like hidden gems, like he's always at the top of Google. So it's good that he's updating that stuff.
Yep. Even if I don't agree with all the assessments, he's generally getting it right and will respond if you message him about something that's wrong. So keep it up, Racket Boy. Love you.
Okay, so I'm on the Vectrex article. Rarest and most valuable Vectrex games, of which there are 29 games, so how many can there be? It says Mr. Boston, 5 to 17,000. Mindstorm 2 is the other one, 900 to 3,500. And then you get into the other ones, like 100, 200 bucks tops. Like, shouldn't Vectrex games be kind of rare? So one of the ones is 3D Crazy Coaster, he puts as one of the rarest games. Let's see, there's none on eBay. Is there any on eBay solds? There's one on eBay solds. 400 bucks. But there's 3 of them. I mean, so 400 bucks, that's pretty expensive, but for like one of the top Vectrex games, 3 of them on eBay in sold? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm showing how little I know about Vectrex because I kind of don't care.
Yeah. All right. Cool. We did it. Cool consoles, cool guy consoles. Vectrex, man. Ooh, you were so cool. And the Vectrex people always really wanted to highlight that shit. They really wanted to put it in your face.
I mean, I don't think that's the case. I just noticed a lot more people had them, and it's just because it's like it's an obscure, unique thing. And
I feel like when I saw like early videos and like pictures, like if they had a Vectrex, they'd be like, and check out my Vectrex. Like just they'd have to point at it.
There, in 2012, when I started playing pinball, the game store I was playing pinball at got a complete in box Vectrex in, and I was like really, really considering buying it. It was like $200 or $300. I was like, whoa, Vectrex really one of those consoles you got to have. You're not going to be able to get one in the future. Can you get a Vectrex, Johnny? I bet you can still get a Vectrex.
You probably can. So my friend who does not collect games, but likes to play games, has arcade cabinets, loves Vector graphics. He was like, oh man, Johnny, I got a Vectrex. Do you want to come over and check it out? And I was like, no. He was so crushed. He was like, oh, I mean, but you, I'm like, I'm going to come over and we can do this, but I don't love a Vectrex. I don't care. And I hurt his feelings. I was a bad friend. I should have been more enthusiastic for him.
Oh yeah, we'll pretend to like your Vectrexes if you come to us with a Vectrex.
Yeah, now I'm a slightly better person than I was in that moment. So, but yeah, I was not into it, and I feel bad about because he was so excited, and I was just like, ugh.
It looks like a Vectrex right now costs you, I'm gonna say maybe $500 to $750, depending on how nice it is and how many extras it comes with. Like for $700, you're gonna get a bunch of complete in box games with it too. But like, there's a lot of them. Like I don't know. Like, it's not the rarest thing in the world. There's a lot of Vectrexes out there.
No, you can go get them.
But I mean, that's still very expensive. I guess you're still a cool guy if you have a Vectrex, because I'm certainly never gonna spend $500 to get a Vectrex.
Same.
All right.
Same.
Johnny, some other
let's talk about observations.
Other things I noticed. We did talk about some of them already. A lot of people with huge shelves of every console ever hooked up.
Ever.
And you see, yes, very specifically ever. Because I think a lot of people still like centering their shelf around like their actual console setup. And people 100%. Will have, you know, I think like something similar to you. They'll probably have, you know, like their Xbox, their PlayStation, like the modern stuff, and then probably like a couple of their favorite older consoles hooked up. There are a lot of these older collections where people will have like wire racks of like 40 consoles hooked up through AV switchers. And they're just like, yeah, everything from Odyssey 2 up through PS1 is playable at my house on demand.
Yeah, well, but that was part of the appeal, though. It was like, look at this. I play games. I've got such a big dick for playing games. Look at me. And you're just like, I was like, why do you have that plugged in? When do you ever play that? Oh, well, then my friend came over one time and wanted to check it out. So, you know, it's like, just stop. No one cares about the Odyssey.
It would be so convenient, though. Like, if I don't even have an Atari Jaguar, but like, I would never go, like, if I wanted to play a Jaguar game, like, if I could just throw it in the console, turn it on, and hit the AV switcher, and that was all hooked up, and that was like a one-time pain, that would be great. I would be way more likely to play Atari Jaguar games. But once, like, the fact that we have evolved into this era where there's, like, hundreds of video game consoles, do you know what the easy thing to do is? It's to go to my computer and just double-click an Atari Jaguar ROM and play it that way. That's the way of, like, removing all the effort from playing the game. So, I mean, that wasn't everyone. That's just something I noticed.
No, there was a lot. I mean, there's still people who try to do that. Like, they love getting, like, the IKEA, Kallaxes or whatever they're called now, Expedit, Kallax.
The problem is, like,
you know, the cubes.
There are very many consoles that don't fit in those. Like, you think of, like, long video game consoles, ColecoVision and Television, Odyssey 2, Atari 2600. There's so much stuff that doesn't fit in a cube.
Well, so here's the tip. Is that not all of those shelves need to be in there? Like the support, you can break one of those out and make it a double. So
don't
on those
Collector's
cube
Quest
shelvings.
is not recommending structurally modifying your big ass Kallax shelves.
I can tell you I've done it multiple times and it was fine. But also these people were putting like giant fucking CRTs on it, so be careful with what you do and where you do it. Like maybe don't do it as the center one. Maybe second one from the top or second one from the far edge might be fine. Just be careful if you're going to do this.
I mean,
also, you can put in more support behind it because it's not like it took up the whole thing. You put it in, you got room for a rod in there.
no, I don't think that Calyx is the ideal thing to do, because
I'm not saying it's the ideal thing to do.
So-
I'm saying you still see a lot of people with
Sure.
Kallaxes now full of modern games, and you're like, well, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why you're arguing with me. It's just a bunch of noise.
Well, I'm just talking about the idea of hooking up every console. And I think that there are the setups that have like, there's like some famous pictures where people have like literally like 80 consoles hooked up to a single TV and it looks crazy. The problem I've always run into is like, what do I do with all the fucking controllers? Because the ideal thing to do would be to just like dump the controllers on top of the console. And then when you have like 20 consoles hooked up, it looks like fucking garbage because you have all these cubes that just look like a bunch of shit shoved into a cube because all the controllers are haphazardly shoved on top of there.
So when you have a Kallax, you get one of those like shelves or like bins that fit specifically in there and put your controllers in a bin.
Johnny, okay. But what if I have a ColecoVision? Well, the controllers are built into a ColecoVision. All right. Stop coming up with solutions to problems that I don't actually have anymore.
I'm sorry for being helpful.
You're not. Because even if you didn't have that issue, that quote unquote issue, forget it, Johnny. Framemeisters. I don't know when Framemeisters came out, but I was looking at collections in like 2007-ish, and like people already had Framemeisters sitting around.
I thought that was like more 2010.
All right. I mean, maybe the date tags on the things were wrong, but anyway, whether it was 2007 or 2010, having a Framemeister, which was a very popular $400 video upscaler that would take your RGB signals or component or composite and upscale them to your HDMI TV. And you're right, it probably was 2010 because like 2007, like HD TVs like really starting to first become a thing. But yeah, this $400 box meant that you were the coolest kid on the block because all the other ways of taking your NES and hooking it up to an HDMI TV would introduce input lag and a bad image and just all these things. They weren't, you couldn't fuck with the aspect ratio and, just all these video settings to make everything pixel perfect. Man, you were cool. I still have one. Used to be the coolest kid on the block, and now it's like 22 milliseconds of input lag. How do you deal with that piece of garbage? And also, they always had video artifacting problems. You look at the black areas of any Framemeister image, and it's like really noisy black area. Their video quality was never as good as people pretended they were. But now we live in the world of like OSSC and RetroTink, and we have better, cheaper options, and everyone's better for it. But you used to be really cool if you had a Framemeister.
So cool.
I think a lot of people had CRT TVs just because CRT TVs were so common back then. Like people literally had it upgraded to you couldn't go to Walmart and get a 55-inch TV for $200. So if you had multiple TVs in your house, probably some of them were still CRTs.
Yeah, it was like, oh, well, we got the new one for the living room, so this CRT is coming downstairs with me.
Yeah, and all these collections are like sitting in people's basements, so it's like,
they're all basements.
Here's my 50-inch rear projection piece of shit that just looks like garbage, but man, it's a big screen TV.
But look how big it is. Like, you don't understand, like, back in the day, like, a 36-inch, like, CRT was, like, as big as you could get for a CRT. That was it.
I know that now looking back, but that like the 36-inch CRT would have been the cool thing to have. One, I think 36-inch is just too big. Like looking at the image quality for the low-res image you're going to put on that display, it is just not going to look as good as it will on a smaller display. There's a limit to the size I would ever want to blow up that image.
Yeah, your pixel is going to just be huge.
And the second thing, as a kid, I always thought that the shitty rear projection ones were cooler because they were bigger. So I'd go and look at like a shitty rear projection TV and be like, whoa, they have a big screen TV here? They must be rich.
Oh, that was the thing, too. They were called big screen TVs.
Oh, yeah, big screen TVs.
Yeah. Oh, dude, did you hear the Andersons down the street have a big screen TV? Oh, shit. Like, it was so impressive, a big screen TV. And now I'm like, and they were like 48 inches or something. And now I'm like, I mean, God, for that tiny piece of shit, we need something bigger than this. What is that?
That and their image quality was terrible. Like you see sometimes people have them on Craigslist and they're like trying to get $200 for it. And it's like, dude, you should just throw that away. Or if someone comes to pick it up, you should be happy that someone is hauling that off for free for you.
Yeah. Help them lift it, you asshole.
Yes.
Yeah. So also I want to just, since we're talking about CRTs, if you were a cool guy, you had a Sony Trinitron CRT.
Oh, yeah, you gotta get that Sony Trinitron.
That Trinitron, baby. You were a cool guy.
Man, this is one of those like groupthink things. Like I don't know about CRT manufacturing. I understand that Sony Trinitrons, I'm sure certain models more than others, are generally a high quality thing. There must be other brands that were just as good as Sony Trinitron, but everyone just immediately bought into the fact that, not like immediately, but everyone buys into the fact that like, oh, Trinitron's the best. Why? Because it is. Can we get like a technical reason behind it other than Sony makes high quality products?
It's what plants crave. It's what plants craves. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Panasonic was also very good because I was a younger person buying big TVs and like comparing the two. And Panasonic made a very strong, more affordable option. Not that it was cheap, but if you were buying like a 36-inch, and then like Sony was coming out with their like flat screen Wegas and stuff, and you're just like, oh God, here we go. It was an arms race. And then thankfully plasma TVs came out and became the hottest shit. And then LCD TVs took over.
Man, remember plasma TVs?
Mm-hmm.
Neat. It's weird that a whole technology only existed for like a few years.
You know, I still have a plasma TV in my house.
Isn't there something that plasma TVs do best?
Better blacks.
Is it just the blacks? I swear I saw like some AV enthusiast forum that was lamenting that you couldn't get a plasma TV anymore.
Oh yeah, my plasma TV, even though it's like 1080, that thing was sweet. Like the image quality is still super sharp because it's set up in like our other living room, hung on a fireplace. And that thing, like, I turn it on sometimes because like my wife and son will be like watching something loud in the other room. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like escape to the other room and like turn this thing on. And I always think I'm gonna hate it. I never do. I'm always like, man, this still looks really nice. They were just more expensive to make too.
I need no LED TV, Johnny, because I mostly watch horror movies, and they're all really dark, and like local dimming and all that has come a long way. Like older HD TVs really suck in terms of blacks, but like still, I know that like my LCD can only go so far, and then you get that OLED, and it's like blacks as deep as the ocean
because the pixel turns off.
Man, you have an OLED?
I don't, because I have a 75-inch TV.
Yeah, like that's the problem. Like in terms of like my price range, like I have. Do you have a TCL? You probably told me to buy the TCL, right?
I told you to buy. Yeah, and you fought me on it, and then you were like, "Yo, this was good."
I've got the bang for buck budget Chinese brand TV because you could get like a 65-inch TV for like $500 or something.
Well, also it played games well.
And it has low input lag.
Yeah, which it shouldn't. Like for its price point, it should have been like a total piece of shit, and turned out it was like pretty good.
Yeah,
which was weird.
So the problem is, like, now that I have a 65-inch TV, like, there's no way I'm going back to a 55-inch TV, and so I just gotta wait for the technology to get much cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, and now, like, TV technology, people are still fighting it. Like, I'm always looking at TVs, like, are we gonna get to the point where short throw projectors are gonna be, like, the thing that we can actually just do? Have you seen short throw projectors? They're awesome.
I don't even know. You just mean, like a literal projector?
So it's actually, they're laser projectors.
They project onto like a surface on the wall.
Yeah,
because that's not going to help me with my blacks issue because I need.
Well, so that's part of the thing. Like they're getting to the point where those things are going to be great. We're not there yet, but you don't need like 10 feet of room. You can just put it on like a normal like piece of furniture right in front of like the wall, like 16 inches from the wall rather than like 10 feet away. They're pretty cool. And, so it also comes down to like what happened to plasma TVs. Technology will take over because it's better or also cheaper to mass produce and like still pretty good. And that's LCDs were just a lot easier and cheaper to make as far as raw materials went. So plasma just went away, or they would have still been advancing plasma technology. So I'm wondering if short throw projectors will become a thing one day, because they look very promising.
All right, not for me. I'm sure they will for someone. It is weird to me that I understand like CRTs are for like weird niche enthusiasts. I can't believe there's not like one company that still went on making CRTs, because when you look at a technology like VCRs, I understand a simpler technology, less expensive than making CRT monitors. VCRs were made up until like a couple years ago.
It's just insane.
And when you think, like, I am constantly pissed off at the refresh rate of my computer monitor, and I've got like a 240 hertz refresh rate monitor. Like, my monitor, it kicks ass by every metric of LCD monitors, but it's not as good as a CRT was with that fucking instant smooth as butter refresh rate. So I don't know. Isn't there some kind of like commercial purpose for having a super high refresh rate? Some kind of digital artist? I don't know. There must be some. I guess not. I guess if there was some commercial purpose, they'd be able to sell them still for $5,000, but they don't. So,
well, also you would have to really want to pay that much money for one when you could just go get one from the Goodwill for $10.
No, but I mean, the problem is the one from the Goodwill, it's going to have like the colors fucked up. You need to calibrate it. It might not be like one of the high definition, high res ones. Because like people will pay, especially like when you get into like RGB monitors, people pay like thousands of dollars for like a 29-inch one. Like 29 inches is like, holy shit, you got like the enormous one. You're the coolest kid in the class. And like if it's worth thousands of dollars new or used, you would think like, I don't know, maybe there's some market to have some niche thing thousands of dollars new. But I guess it's probably just a huge supply chain, and I'm an idiot for even considering this. I'm sure there are people who like actually are whining about this. Like, I can't believe it's not economically viable. And like okay, why don't you look into starting a company to make CRTs and see how complex the manufacturing is?
And what the supply chain looks like and everything else.
All right. Johnny, another thing I noticed going through old video game collections, shitty arcade sticks. My God, did people have a lot of shitty arcade sticks. I'm talking both.
So many.
Like you get like that special edition version of Tekken, and it comes with the Tekken arcade stick, and like the joystick and the buttons are just like cheap generic Chinese brand. This was before.
But you just put those Sanwas in there.
Yeah,
it's great. But
sure, whatever. Like, yeah, you'd mod them with the real arcade hardware, but the ones you got were usually shitty, which always pissed me off because yes, there is an expense to getting the real arcade hardware versus the cheap no-name brand stuff. But how expensive would it be to get, like, buttons? I understand you're cost cutting down to the nth degree, but, like, charge $10 more for the special edition and make it a controller worth using.
I think also custom, like, sticks back in the day, like, if you had, like, a really nice arcade stick, like a custom one, or you built your own, that was like a cool guy thing that got shown off a lot.
Oh, 100%. Custom arcade sticks were really popular because, like, this was even before, like, it was probably around the time of, like, sticks. Like, the Hori Real Arcade Pro series was when Hori started putting out nice PS2 controllers with real arcade parts. But yeah, a lot of people made custom sticks in just, like, the kind of shitty-looking boxes. They'd always paint them up looking nice and stuff. But nowhere near, like, you could just, like, go probably to Walmart and get, like, an arcade-quality stick now, right?
I have no idea. I've never liked arcade sticks.
I think people are a lot pickier now. I think people have only got more picky with time. Another thing you'd see is like those ASCII Super Nintendo sticks. You'd see all kinds of shitty PS1 sticks. You'd see people with NES advantages. Like, all those are fucking garbage. There's no reason to have those.
Not at all.
What's the Interact? Who makes Game Shark? The Game Shark people made an N64 joystick. I saw a couple of those. That's interesting because it has a movable joystick that moves between the D-pad section and the joystick section. So you can actually use an N64 joystick that controls the analog stick. Johnny, I had one of those too. Guess what? It's fucking horrible.
It sounds horrible. What else? What else?
Magazines and game
So many
guides.
magazines.
Oh my god! I literally forgot these existed until I started going through these old collections, and it's like, oh yeah, people used to just have a bookcase full of Game Pros and Nintendo Powers and those Prima game guides.
Well, and don't forget, you were the cool guy if you had the Nintendo guides that came out for games like Chrono Trigger and Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country.
And there's a bunch of NES era guides. Well, there was one with like the rainbow on the front. It's just called the Nintendo Power Player's Guide. Like that was a cool book to have. Like not rare at all, but I know that was a cool one. And then yeah, like there's like a Ninja Gaiden 2 strategy guide. There's a Super Mario Brothers 3 strategy guide. But
And
mostly the things I would see are like the Prima guides, because again, you go to the Goodwill, you go to the thrift, the flea market, you're gonna find Prima game guides, and they're books, so they're not gonna cost any money. I bought some of these as a teenager when I was starting to collecting, but I quickly realized, like, man, this is some real junk that's just sitting around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old guy, old collector. I have a lot of strategy guides, and I love them.
I don't
and
love
kind of hate them because they're the worst to move. They're just boxes. What was the one guide that everybody had though? Like I had it as a kid. It's the black guide.
Yeah, the Nintendo Power Player's Guide. It goes over like a dozen NES games.
Yeah, is that what it's called?
Yeah. It's got like white text on the front and like a rainbow thing going down the side. Yeah, that was a pretty cool guide. I mean,
that was excellent.
It's cool stuff. But yeah, I just don't like guides in general. I feel like the actual content of them is mediocre most of the time. There's because it is a guide to everything in the game, like not that people actually read these guys, but like 60% of it is just like the most mundane how to play the game type stuff. And like maybe it'll tell you how to get all the collectibles or shit. But like the print quality is not good enough. It's not like an art book. Like yes, there will be maps and art in them and it's interesting. I don't know. If you collect guides, knock yourself out. I'm sure you're sad that they don't exist anymore.
So, yeah, I have like, there's a lot of guides that were still pretty popular. What is it? Final Fantasy VII guide. There's one version of that guide that's the expensive version, and then there's like the regular version that everybody got. And there's like, it's by a different brand. I don't think it was the Prima guide, or maybe the Prima one.
I think there's a Brady Games guide for Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, it's the Brady Games with the white cover, and that was like expensive. And that black guide was the official Nintendo Player's Guide. That thing was sweet. And then there's so many guides. Go follow our friend Acid Jaguar if you want to see cool guides. He's on Instagram, and he'll show you all the cool Nintendo paper stuff.
Sure. I'm not talking about like the weird hint book that you mailed away no one has.
But I'm just recommending if you're into this kind of stuff.
And yeah, magazines. I had a shelf of magazines. I got rid of all my magazines a long time ago. Not all of them. I still have my Next Generations, because that was by far the best vintage video game magazine. I don't care what anyone says. But yeah, magazines really made me start to feel like a hoarder. As someone who is like, you could diagnose me as a hoarder, but like when you just look at that stack, especially of like Game Informer, which is just like the free GameStop magazine, because I would never throw anything out because I'm a collector. And it's like, what am I doing with 75 issues of Game Informer? I've never read any of these. I have no attachment to this. It just showed up at my house because I'm a GameStop premium member or whatever. So, yeah, I got rid of all my magazines, including my Nintendo Powers.
I can't believe you got rid of your Nintendo Powers.
Fuck Nintendo. I still have Nintendo Power issue 1, and I still have the Ocarina of Time issue. But everything else, I don't need that in my life, Johnny.
What?
What?
Why?
Nintendo Power is a bad magazine.
Just look, the best way to do it
nostalgic.
now. Look, the best way to do it now is just get graded ones, because then they're rare collectibles. So just start getting, graded copy or really nice ungraded ones, and you could grade them, and then you could be a real collector.
Yeah, sell them for $24,000, which I think the last Nintendo Power one that sold went for.
Yeah, well, if you want an 8.5, there's currently one on eBay right now only $4,000. Free shipping though. So
yeah,
Volume 2 is only 2,100.
I mean,
that's
fine. I can get nostalgia from bad things. Fighting Masters on Sega Genesis was a game I played a lot as a kid. I could go back to that and I could have some fun with that. I get the nostalgia kick. Every time I've gone back to Nintendo Power, even the issues I had as a kid and read as a kid, I'm just like astounded by like, this is all very basic information for like the first 2 levels of a game I didn't own. What did I possibly get out of this as a kid? It's like anti-nostalgia. It's like me remembering like, what was I read this over and over and over, and I didn't own any of the games, and I didn't need to know any of this information. And there's like the little segments, like the Nestor comics and stuff. Like there's some like little parts that was actual content, probably trying to sell me something still. And like I remember that, and I can enjoy that. But the bulk of Nintendo Power, I just do not get any enjoyment from. It didn't have any like real substantial articles or real substantial information, or
it was marketing material.
Anyways, I mean, I totally get why it's the most popular thing, but
I'm gonna finish out my Nintendo Power collection.
You don't have a full Nintendo Power collection? You're such a hoarder. What are you talking about?
I'm missing like 4.
Also, we're friends with Stefan. He must have like duplicate copies of every single issue.
He does not.
Oh man!
And these are like 4 later ones. So I'm missing like just some dumb ones.
I mean, probably when it had the lowest circulation.
True, but I also don't have like the what's it called, the newsletter, the Fun Club newsletter 1 or 2. I'm missing those.
God,
those people really want money for those, and I'm just like,
yeah, you're fucked now. Especially since like people are grading Nintendo Powers. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm never getting those. I'm just like, nah.
There was
I don't care that much.
A couple of years ago, there was a Fun Club 1 with the like literal envelope that it came in, and like all the shit. Like it wasn't just Fun Club 1 in the envelope. It came with other advertising inserts in that envelope. And it was sitting on eBay, unsold by it now, but the seller was on vacation. And I don't remember if either it wasn't letting me buy it, or I was like, I don't want to buy it while a seller's on vacation. That's kind of weird. And I just never bought it. And you'll never have it now. But I think Fun Club 1 is a lot. I mean, Nintendo Power 1 is cool. But Fun Club is rarer, especially with that envelope. I think that's way cooler. Yeah, I would definitely like to have that.
I think it's like, if you're willing to spend $1,000, I think you can still get one in bad shape for 1. And then there's Volume 2, which you can get for a little cheaper.
Oh yeah. Like this one, like a couple years ago, was obviously less than $1,000 for like the super nice, like the nicest Fun Club I've ever seen.
Yeah. And this is like, I think there's $1,000 copy now that's ugly. And there's some like score pads out there.
Fuck that.
Yeah. Nope. Sounds like a bad deal.
All right. And just other things I'm noticing, Johnny. Lots of cart collectors. I don't think that's different from now that much. I think people who collect older consoles, there's still a lot of cartridge collectors. I think more the interesting thing is if you're the type of person who only collects like PS2 and newer games, or even like PlayStation and newer games, the concept of owning, you might not even own any loose games, because if you're collecting, like Xbox and PS3 and PS4, like, you're not collecting discs. Don't be a crazy person. I mean, that might just become a moot thing at some point if people don't collect cartridges, right? I just thought that was kind of interesting. I never really considered it.
Yeah, well, I think back then you just like, you got what you got, and like you were happy when you found something, and it didn't matter. So
yeah,
a little different.
Also, not many specialists. So I said before that there were definitely Atari specialists, and there's definitely Nintendo specialists. But I feel like you can find, it's not common to find a specialist, but like, Dan Gomez, a bit of an Xbox specialist. You look at his collection, he's got a bunch of Xbox shit. And you'll find like sealed collectors who have like a very, like, here's my sealed Pokemon collection. They're the only video games I own. I think you find more specialists now than you did back then. Because games were so cheap and so available for the older stuff, and there was such a more limited supply. There was, because newer stuff wasn't collectible, So like, just imagine everything from the 2000s on was not really stuff people collected that much. So you had like a couple decades of games to collect. So people just kind of collected all of it.
Yeah. I mean, look at me. Look at all the bullshit I have.
Yeah, I mean, and you go back to, you know, those 2006 and sometimes even earlier collections, like the guys who had money and the guys who had space, because this stuff was so cheap back then, they're like ridiculous collections of
so good.
And like they'll just be like, oh, here's NES Game Genie. And like, yeah, that's very rare, but like here's like 3 different versions of it. Like here's like my multiple copies of Game Action Replay. Here's a quick shot joystick. I've got all 7 quick shot joystick variants and just like on this huge shelf of just like absolute insanity. For the people who did have money and space back then.
Was a different time.
Yep. And especially going through, last thing I noticed, especially going through the Digitpress Rooms of Doom, no computer games. Still like this divide, and this definitely continues now because people do not care about computer games. The computer game and the console game collecting world are completely different. It's crazy to me. I don't understand it, Johnny. It's like if people who collected comic books and people who collected trade paperbacks just did not mix and did not hang out with each other. They're all the same thing. We're all playing video games here, Johnny. And you know what? I'm going to be real with you, Johnny. A lot of us aren't playing the video games we buy.
Oh my God, what?
What are we doing cutting out?
You're giving away the secret.
What the fuck? If you're not... Look, no one is playing their copy of Half-Life anymore, Johnny. I'm just going to say it. That game is like, what, $10 tops on Steam? And during Steam sales, it must be practically free. Half-Life has been on sale forever, every Steam sale for like $5. No one is going to put a copy of Half-Life into a computer. So why the fuck? What are you doing buying the PlayStation 2 version of it? You know that's not the real version of Half-Life. It's not the version of Half-Life you're gonna play unless that was your childhood experience with Half-Life. Just buy the real computer version.
Hey, Tyler.
What is StarCraft 64? Who is buying StarCraft 64? Just get a copy of StarCraft. It's fine. You're not gonna play it. If you're gonna play it, you're going to download the digital version. Just put the real version of StarCraft on your shelf.
Tyler, it's okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. So, as well as your observation, so this is something I noticed in conjunction with that. But in their game room, you would see a big PC setup. And I would be like, where are all the computer games? They have this big computer sitting there. There's a big CRT monitor, a computer CRT monitor. Where are all the computer games if this thing's sitting there?
And then you realize that retro PC is actually just their PC from 2006.
Yeah. Yep. You're like, oh, they're not playing games on that. That's just...
Oh, it's probably got Minesweeper installed.
Yeah. That's just the machine they use to probably masturbate with. Great.
Great. Thanks, Johnny. Good observation.
Sorry, you could cut that. I was trying to be a little gross. I just wanted to get you. That was really just for you. I knew you would appreciate it, though. And you know, I'm not wrong.
I mean, they're in the basement already.
I know. Where better. Anyways, that was some fun stuff. If you want to, I do encourage all of you to go look in these rooms of dooms. Go look at some old pictures. Enjoy the 70s wall paneling, even though it's going to be, 2005. It'll still be there for you. So check out some rooms of dooms. Lots of cool basements. Let us know what you observe. But when you're looking at them, look for the items we talked about, because that's how you know you're looking at a cool room. Because there's lots of pictures of rooms, but that doesn't mean that they're cool guys. Look for the cool guy items.
Oh, yeah. Make sure you judge how people are collecting, because if they're collecting wrong, you let them know. A lot of these people have like their usernames attached to these galleries too, so go message them and be like, hey, I was creeping on your pics you posted on the internet 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What the hell were you doing back then?
Sucks.
Clean your room, young man.
Yeah. It was like, what's up with that plate with pizza on it and your pack of Marlboros, dude? Just like, you couldn't have moved that for this picture? You're gross. Let them know.
All right.
I mean, and they were gross. It was gross. I there was literally 3 pictures I found like that, and I was like, man, gross. So yeah, if that's your picture, just know I've judged you, and I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Anyway,
Johnny, are we done reminiscing on the past?
Yeah.
Let's bring it back
We're
to
done.
the modern day.
Modern. You wanna do a collector's question? Do we have one of those?
I'm desperately getting over there as usual.
Always. Tyler.
What?
You know what? I know you're gonna find us a good one.
Now, I do them in chronological order. I don't
I
screen
know
these
you're
at
gonna
all.
find us.
I literally don't even read the question. Like, reading it on the podcast is the first time I am reading the question every single time. Lord Hardstyle Z asks,
Oh no.
Tyler, you and Johnny frequently discuss items you'd keep or get again if you lost your collections and had to rebuild with X amount of money. Fast forward a year or two on that timeline. Do you think you'd be trying for full sets again, or similar to what you're doing now with games of significance in history? I think that's dedicated towards me. And why?
You want to go first, or you want me?
I mean, I don't know. If I lost everything, like I put so much, it's not the money, it's the time. Like if I got an insurance payout or something, there's no way I could hunt all this stuff down again. Like it would take another, quote unquote lifetime of my free time to hunt down all the cool stuff I have again. I would just sit back and be like, oh, it's time to live my life instead of being a collector. Being a collector sure was super dumb. But the fact that I already have I have basically all the stuff I think is the coolest because that's the stuff I collected over my entire life.
So basically you're validating sunk cost?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just sunk cost. Like I feel like I am improving a collection I already love by continuing to add to it. But if I had to start over to get it to the point where I'd be like, oh, this is just as good as it used to be. This fucking rules. It would take so much time that there's no way I would do it again. And no, I would never collect sets again in either case. I think both because just set games are too expensive now. Like games in the dollar bin, a lot of the times I got for $1, and just like even like Xbox, like I wouldn't pay like modern shipping costs, let alone $9 for all the filler games. Like I need to get that shit for $1, and it's just too much space, it's too much time, too much effort, too much cleaning, too much organizing, too much cataloging. Small game collections are way better, Johnny. As you're going through and recataloging your collection, I'm like still in the process of organizing to get to the point where I can recatalog my collection. Big game collections full of garbage games are dumb. Don't do it.
So, it's very hard. Also, by the time you got to the point, like you get your insurance payout, if games like still rise, right? Who knows if the insurance premium would pay you exactly what it was worth. But let's say that thing magically happens and you get market value. By the time it would take to get there, if game prices still continue to rise, you may like the market value may have moved enough where it like you couldn't physically buy it for the money that you put in your bank account. That's like a thing I think about. Also, no, though, for me, I would not rebuy all my sets. I would probably redo Super Nintendo, and I would redo it better and smarter, and I would just focus on that and make it as nice as possible. I think that's like where I would go, and then like I might finish up some, like I might go after a different maybe one set. I don't think you should, and I wouldn't want to do it for everything. But I would probably just become a specialist and just be like, man, this is what I'm doing. Or maybe I would go weird and just get every Super Famicom game I could get my hands on.
I cannot see a future where you do that. Unless you're saying in addition to the Super Nintendo stuff.
Yeah, no, in addition to the Super Nintendo stuff. Like, yeah, like, oh, that's what I'm saying. Being a specialist, just like that whole, like, cause that was my thing. Like, maybe that's just all I do. But I would definitely rebuy some games, like the games I absolutely love. Like, I would be rebuying a Final Fantasy and a Castlevania and a Zelda and a Metroid. Like, there was games I would definitely just rebuy, but I wouldn't be like, you know what? At 720, I think I really need a 720 and, RBI baseball 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, I should probably have all of those. Like, no, that's not happening. Like even games that people like, hey, Jackal. Like, no, No, I'm not.
Come on, you gotta have a Jackal, Johnny.
No, I don't give a shit.
This is the problem. I've fallen into this trap with Sega CD specifically is the one I remember. Like, I saw myself falling over the edge as it was happening, because I didn't plan on getting a Sega CD set. I wanted all the good Sega CD games, and so I got Snatcher, and I got Final Fight CD, and I got Earthworm Jim. And when you get all the good Sega CD games, like Popful Mail, like a lot of the top stuff is like the good stuff. You realize like, oh, I've already got like half the rare games. Oh, let me just go get some of the interesting games. Like, oh, there's all this FMV stuff is exclusive, like Wirehead and whatever. And I think Sword Shark's on 3DO, but whatever. And a lot of that was like really cheap. So I start getting that. And then it's like, okay, I have half the Sega CD set. I might as well pick up like these sports games and the other rare games and just complete it. Like
just get Wheel of Fortune, no big deal.
Yeah, I just like snowballed myself into the set. So if I start like picking up stuff, like I'm gonna do that again, and I want to actively stop myself from collecting like that ever again.
Yeah, the problem is, and I think this is true for you as well, is I like games and I find games interesting. I find that like even if I don't want to play it, I find them interesting. I want to pick them up and look at them. It's not an accident that we're on a podcast talking about these old games. We like them. So, even shit like Jackal, I'm going to look at and be like, and like RBI, I'm like, can you believe that RBI 4 that they changed the box? Like, can you believe that like the top isn't white? Like, that's so interesting. Like, I know no one gives a shit about that, but I give a shit about that. And when I find something interesting, I like to throw money at it so I can have it and be like, look, where I could just be on the internet, but every time I'm on the internet, I'm like, this is not the same experience. It's not the same as like actually having it and seeing it. Even if I'm only going to see it for 30 seconds, I start to gauge whether that's worth $30. And that's a problem.
All right, Johnny. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to move on to the next question. Living in Bits asks something I think we already answered recently. What are some of your future collecting goals? I think we pretty much answered that in our very last episode.
We had a whole episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Dork Overlord asks, if you could go back in time 10 years and give yourself collecting advice, what would it be?
What an apropos question.
I mean, if I could go back, like, I'm giving myself a list of all the coolest shit to get.
And 10 years ago, I would just be like, go buy that go buy every black box game sealed that you can. Hoard them. Get them all as nice as possible. Make money. Profit, retire. Like what? That's like as a collector, or
let's say
it's hard not to look at
resale.
through the.
Let's say you have to keep the shit because I know you're not going to care if you have a sealed Popeye. So
no, but I mean it's hard not to put through everything through the lens of money right now because everything became.
But let's say
moneyed.
like you can't sell this shit that you tell yourself to get, and you can't show it off on Instagram. You just have to enjoy it yourself.
All right. That's hard because I don't know if I'm doing too much differently. Like, if I could stop myself from buying more sets, what I'd be like, go buy all the Game Boy games now. But see, it still comes back to money because it's just like that shit's gonna get more expensive than you can deal with. And if you ever want a box Game Boy set, you should just go do it now.
Yeah, I mean,
so it just all comes down to money.
I mean, I don't think I would listen to myself. Just because I was so rabidly buying shit. I've always been rabidly buying shit. But like if I told myself, hey, don't collect sets. I know you're in the middle of like Super Nintendo and it's like one of the best consoles ever made, but like you really shouldn't complete that Super Nintendo set that you've been working on. Like I'm not gonna listen to myself.
Yeah, well, I'll listen to you after Super Nintendo's done.
And like the advice I would give to myself is like, don't collect sets. Get stuff in the nicest condition possible. Even when it's much more expensive, you will probably be happier getting, like, say, a nice complete in box over the shitty complete in box. You'll be happier with complete in box over the cartridge. Let me tell you, it's 2012 right now, or I guess it's 2013 right now. The premiums on condition and boxes are really low. Just get them all now. Promise me. Like, I promise you, it's never going to get better than this. And I'd be like, yeah, but I could get, like, 10 cartridges for the price of like 2 complete in box games. So why would I do that?
You're like, so my game collection's only going to be at 1,000 games instead of 5,000.
Right? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. It's a dumb thing.
Yeah.
I still will sometimes be like, well, what's the value cost here? But 100%, like when I was doing Super Nintendo, I would have been like, Johnny, just make sure it has the poster, Johnny. Like, I don't even care about the condition of the box. You'll find a box. Make sure it has the fucking poster, okay? Get the poster and the manual, because that's a pain in your ass. Don't worry about, like, if it has a nice box too, great. But you know what the answer is? Go buy 2 of them and then sell the shitty version. Put them together.
See, like, that's another thing I should have done. I don't sell a lot of stuff, so I've always really avoided buying duplicate games. But going back now, like, I have no problem buying multiple games just because it's so easy to piece them together and make a nicer game. And that's just something I find myself doing a lot more often. Keeping up old save searches, and if I see a nicer copy, I'll buy that and upgrade all my shit. Johnny, I'm up to 3 copies of Tunnels of Doom on TI-99. I bought 2 boxes. Both of them had Sharpies on it. I got my 3rd box, and it's like shitty and water damaged. We're going for the 4th copy of Tunnels of Doom here. I really want a nice Tunnels of Doom.
Can't wait to get a copy of Tunnels of Doom from you. Send me one with Sharpie.
Yeah, you're going to get one of the Sharpie ones. I'll give you the one with the nicer handwriting.
Oh, sweet. Sounds great. All right. Do we have any more on this question, or are we?
No, that's it.
Okay, so we're gonna play a game real quick before we end. I'm gonna say a name of, maybe it's a Switch game, maybe it isn't. You have to tell me if it's real or if it's not.
Oh my god. Okay.
Okay, Just Die Already.
That's a real game.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Actually, has a subtitle too. Just Die Already. Old People Mayhem Sandbox.
Okay. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I need you to go to ChatGPT and make it come up with like a list of believable fake video game names.
Oh, I mean, I'm just illustrating Just Die Already. If that can be a game title, anything can be a game
exactly.
title. And
That's why it would make it a lot harder.
Yeah.
But okay.
All right.
Is that was the whole segment? Good segment.
Just a quick hitter. Do you want a few more? I have
no, save them. This is excellent segment. We're gonna get so much feedback on this. Everyone's gonna love this part.
Yeah. All right.
Johnny, what are you buying? What are you playing over the holidays?
What? Oh, nothing. I'm literally playing no games.
Same.
It was so busy. Like I can't. And my wife worked constantly, so there was just not a lot of playing. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you. I got a Steam Deck for Christmas, and I did play.
You literally got like the hot gift that we're like, oh, if your family really loves you, you can get a Steam Deck.
Yeah, my wife got me a Steam Deck. I told you I thought she might, and she did. Yeah. I got to play the Aperture Science like intro to your Steam Deck, and that was cool because I love everything Portal. So,
so you literally didn't even play a video game on your Steam Deck yet.
I played a little bit of Final Fantasy 1 just to like check it out, but I've been doing all this I was like, I have this time, so I have like time to get things done.
Yeah,
that I won't ever be. So I was like frantically trying to get things done, and then like also watching my son. So it was just, not as much. Didn't go as well as I wanted it to. I need like 2 more weeks off. Now that I like all the buying and everything, it was like, oh, they gave you this time off because you have a job. You have to go see all those family members that came out, and you have to go buy all these presents, and you have to go do all these obligations. So you need time off to accomplish all of these things. And resting wasn't actually a thing that happened. All these people who come back from Christmas being like, I'm so recharged and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, who are you people? What did you do? Nothing? How did this happen for you?
I mean, I got a lot of free time. I think it's great.
Did you? No free time.
I couldn't get off between Christmas and New Year's at work. This is really interesting podcast content. I took off before Christmas because I couldn't get off between Christmas and New Year's. And I'm liking that better because I went home directly after Christmas and then went to work. And then there's no work to do between Christmas and New Year's. Or like it's a lot toned down. So that's like my break at work. And now I'm coming in. I'm recharged, Johnny.
Nice. I took time off with Carly 2 weeks before Christmas as well, and that was nice.
All right.
What'd you buy? I didn't say what I bought. Did you buy anything?
Johnny, I got a copy of Ultima 8.
Oh, good.
I think that's the only major Ultima game I don't own besides Ultima 1 and Akalabeth, I guess. Neat. And then I got a sealed copy of Dungeons of Daggerath. This was like $40. So in my TRS-80 saved search, for the longest time, there was a sealed copy of Dungeons of Daggereth that came up. And because I have the save search constantly running, like I'd always see it. It's a very recognizable box, and it's a pretty cool game. It's like a historic RPG.
No, it's on my list.
Yeah. And then one day it disappeared, and Josh Byerly bought it, and he was talking it up. He's like, fuck yeah, this is in bad condition, but no one's got this sealed. And then another one came up, also in bad condition, also around $40. And it's so cheap that I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to upgrade my copy to a sealed one. So I got a sealed Dungeons of Daggereth.
Excellent news.
Yeah.
And now if you ever need to play one, you've got an open copy.
Of course. Exactly. Yes. Because definitely I'm going to put this into my TRS-80 color computer.
That's the... Did you buy anything else?
No, that's it. It's the holidays. Wow. I got, my family got me Splunky, the collector's edition. Talking
the game that I always think is the other game.
Yep, you sure do.
I got GTA for the Game Boy Color.
Oh,
actually, it was just the box and the manual, and I had the cart, so I was like, "Oh, sweet, let me complete this," because it was like not great condition, but it was pretty cheap. So I was like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'll just complete this," and that was nice.
Have you ever played that?
Nope.
All right. I've never played it, but it seems like it would work. I always thought that was a really cool port, considering how much the GBA is like an absolute piece of shit. And GTA is a kind of complex game.
This is the GBC one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, GBC. That's exactly what I meant.
Okay, because there's a GBA version.
Yeah, I'm sure the GBA version is fine. I've always been interested in this port. I've never played it. GTA 2 is on Game Boy Color also.
Yeah, did I tell the story of the box that was listed at $100? I think I did. So there was a box on eBay that was listed as $100, and I was just watching it, and then they sent me a discount, and instead of discounting instead of discounting it $10, they made it $10, or it was 90% off. I was like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll buy this. I did. So anyways, yeah, I got that. The other thing, I bought one other thing. I bought one dumb thing, and I posted a picture of it today, Tyler. And again, Josh Byerly's name is thrown in here because he showed me this stupid thing. And it's Hot Wheels Track Attack, but it had a slipcase. I was like, I don't have the slipcase version.
I'm sorry. Did you say the console is this a Switch game?
Did I say Switch? I meant Wii.
Whoa. I mean, I don't know what console Hot Wheels Track Attack is for. I'm sorry. I'm a fake gamer over here.
Yeah, sorry. It's the Wii version with the slipcover. And I'm like, I haven't seen that. So I bought it. And then the caption on the Instagram post is New Year, same old me, because I'm still buying Wii bullshit. Nothing's changed.
Cool. Game collecting is the weirdest hobby, Jim.
I'm the dumbest.
It is so weird.
I mean, my wife got a bunch of Pops for Christmas. I was like, so we're done with Pops, right? And she's like, no, there's a bunch of Harry Potter Pops. I don't have it. I want you to go get them for me. I was like, are you serious? And then I may have went overboard in that, Tyler. So I bought her a bunch of Pops, and then I was like, man, the info on this is really bad. And there's no good info really about if you look at Funko as a brand, do you know they make 20 different versions of vinyl figures? Why?
I have no idea anything about Funko, Johnny. I kind of don't want to know anything about Funko.
Well, I went down a rabbit hole because I'm trying to learn all this stuff because okay, you get Pops, right? And the numbering system, at least for these Harry Potter Pops she wants, they're not numbered. So it's you think, oh, easy. They're numbered. They're easy to collect. And then you find two Pops that have the same number, in the Harry Potter line. You're like, this one is 32 and this one's also 32. Why? They're different. And then they get one where it's okay, this one has orange eyes and this one has black eyes, and they have the same number or they have different numbers. You're like, wait, what? And then there's one Pop, it's 104, and there's just 3 different Pops, 3, and you're like, what is happening? And then 103 doesn't exist. So the numbering scheme is all messed up, Tyler. And then they have these Pops, right, that they call Pocket Pops, which are 1.75 inches tall or something, right? They come in advent calendars and on keychains. Also, they don't differentiate. The keychain ones, it's Pocket Pop, Pocket Pop keychain, but they just all the same. Really obnoxious. Anyways, those ones don't have a numbering system at all, right? Because they're smaller. So the scale, I guess, matters, right? You would think that's what happens. Except then they'll make a pop that has a version in the Pocket Pop version, the regular pop that you would think of, like that, like about 4 inches tall. And then they'll make a 10-inch version or an 18-inch version of it, Tyler. And that, and
I hate those. I see those at Walmart. Like, they're so big and ugly and bulky.
Yeah, right. But those are in the numbering scheme. They keep those in the numbering scheme. They don't get their own numbering scheme. Like, why are those ones in the numbering?
Come on, you want an 18-inch Funko Pop?
Yeah, they're just like, well, Carly hates them too, thankfully. She's like, no, those are gross looking. So she's like, I don't want those. Though she did say the like most collector-y thing to me ever yesterday. She's like, I really don't want those big pops. She's like, but we might need them and put them in the garage. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, Carly, that is the most collector thing you've ever said to me. Gross.
Like, are these all in box, by the way, Johnny? These are
no. She threw all the boxes away, but she also was like, "Oh, maybe we should have kept the boxes on some more of these." And I was like, "Maybe we should have."
Nope. Keep Harry Potter's box. That's fine.
Well, no, because now she only puts them on the shelves. Like she doesn't put them all out. She like I have these boxes set up for her, and she goes into the box and she'll pick some and then she'll display them. Right.
Okay.
So now she had the boxes, she could just store them in the boxes and it wouldn't matter. It would just be a layer of protection for them. So that's why now she's like, maybe I'll just keep the boxes.
I don't know. Johnny, come on. You're going to have in your garage like 50 empty Funko Pop boxes.
50? You more like 100, buddy.
But you're only going to have 50 because you're going to start halfway through.
Yeah.
So you're going to have half your Harry Potter collection with the boxes. One day, Carly's going to get the idea, we really should get the rest of those boxes we're missing.
She's already said it. I've already put a safe search for empty boxes.
No!
Just in case. Yeah, just in case.
Oh, I hate Funko Pops so much.
So much. So, Tyler, it's worse than all that. And I know this is already a boring, tedious story because no one likes Funko Pops except for everybody who does. I think like the Harry Potter ones are like, fine, whatever. My wife likes them. They're good, whatever. Semi-enjoyable. But like, I didn't like the information or like how to organize them. So I like became a madman and like built my spreadsheet out. And then I started putting like what boxes they were in so she could go find them. And then I was like, well, I should list like what houses there. So I just like did all this enrichment on the general data, like until now it's just like a giant spreadsheet full of like data about all these stupid pops. And, like, I won't even get into all the weird sticker variants. And I think I might know more about pops than most people on the planet now. And I'm upset by this.
I don't know. You look at some, I mean, oh my God.
Well,
maybe Harry Potter Funko Pops, yes. But you look at some of the Funko Pop collectors, like the big Funko Pop collectors, their entire house, like floor to ceiling, is full of boxed pops. Like thousands of them. It's the worst. It's so ugly and horrible.
I get like they're the 1%, right? But like for some reason now I'm in that 10%.
Sure, yes.
Which it's not a place I ever intended to get to. And then like I'm watching some of these videos, especially by the Harry Potter pop people. I'm like, all right, like let me see if I learned something I don't know. And then I'm just mad at them for being wrong, Tyler. And that is a weird place to be. I'm like, oh no, you got that wrong. I'm like, oh, and that one like you're showing that's a fake. Like,
stop it! Don't argue with Funko Pop people, Johnny. I'm
not arguing. I don't engage them. But then, like it's just then I put it into a Tableau spreadsheet, and I'll send you a link to the video that I made because I just started making informative dashboards.
No, about Funko Pops.
About Harry Potter Funko Pops. I'm ashamed of myself.
Stop it! You make you're a video game content creator. I don't need you getting sucked into wasting your time on Funko Pop stuff.
I mean, I was like, I can justify this because I want to practice a few techniques for work, anyways. So I was like, oh, this is what I do for work anyway. So I'll just do this, anyways. Yeah, that's what we did, and that's it for the show, Tyler.
Thank you.
All the shameful things I did, and. Anyways, I hope everyone's holiday was great. Mine were very busy, but they were still nice. I think did you say the same about yours? How'd yours go? Fun? Good? Nice?
I think we talked about it at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Okay. Well, just make sure. Just closing it out. We all had nice holidays. Hope everyone else's was nice. Hey, welcome to the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. And you can find me on our Discord, which you can be a part of. by joining us on Patreon for as little as $2 or as much as $4. But like $6 is or $6. Don't do $6. $4 is the sweet spot. That's where you get the bonus content and get the Discord. Or if you just want to talk to us, $2. Do that if you want. If not, don't worry about it. Patreon.com/CollectorsQuest. That's the ad for the show. And you can also find me on Instagram, Johnny_Iucci. Tyler?
I'm Default Gen, Default GEN on the Discord, Instagram, and Video Games Sage.
All right. Thanks so much for listening. Bye!
That is our show. Thank you to 8-Bit, apebit.bandcamp.com. He does our intro music. And thank you to the patrons, Richard, patron #1, Bowden, patron for 2 years now. Man! Canadian variant alert, Chris Glidden, Nintendo World Champion, Daniel Jacksvick, high-end collector, Andrew Brim. Greetings, stranger. I'm not surprised to see Andrew Shelton around here. 50 Hertz is good enough for me, Andre. Video games were meant to be slabbed, Brandon Ackley, Brian Gupta, and Pocky and Rocky with Becky. The strictly limited super rare Bruno. Coin-operated Cameron Couch, Super Cedric Clark 2 Turbo, Fat Cat Collector, Chris Jackson. Stop talking trash about sports games, Chris Minoche, Chris SNK, Too Many NES Accessories, Morozek, Johnny's GBA Hookup, Coffee with Mr. Saturn, Playing with Power, Connor Strange, The Last Game You Need for the Set, Corey O'Brien, Unpunched Hang Tab, Dustin Beagle. He has returned to judge this city, Eric Addison, What Are You Buying, GBO Metric, Red Pyramid Thing, Jonathan Shados, Joseph Garris. He's just out there having a good time achieving his goals. Proud of you. The Nintendo Tape Archivist, Joseph Leo. The Variant Authority, Josh Byerly. The Pinball Guy, Joshua Gelb. Kevin Zylog, Z80 Zaker. Lance Lord Hardstyle Z. Commander Mark Halstead. And this is his favorite store in the Citadel. The Degenerate Matt Fall. Posted in the Discord right now, Michael Chiaramonte, Mint Condition, Mora Bros, Mr. CIB, get your loose Genesis carts out of here, Nicholas Mad Dog McCree DiMaggio, Funkoland Employee, Platform Agnostic, Read the Game Shark, the Famicom Box, Retro Game Enthusiast, They Could Be Ghost and Goblins Twice, Chefish, Sean, The Gamer Collective, The New Craft, who could beat Mega Man without the pause trick, Previously Unknown Variant, Tim Walker, From the Internet, Todd Fisher, Can't Put Limits on Collecting, VG Collectaholic, The Millennium, Will Joe, Keeper of the Zelda Variant, 0x Def Code, Previous Game Collector, Adam Kavanaugh, getting the full PS2 set because Stefan won't, all caps! What a 9.8 A++ Benji, the actually rare Bird Dog Gaming, dropping the Mario 64 Penguin off the map, Brandon Chalker, Brandon Rogers, whose favorite episode is the wrestling episode, Christopher Piper, still shaking from what he found at Goodwill, still finding deals in 2023, Colton Murphy, David Eisenman, it's in the game! That's not how I'm supposed to say it. David Eisenman, it's in the game. A winner is him, David Green, Derek Lauer, who made me edit this show, Don Libby, the hero of time, Double Ugly presents Double Ugly, the official game of the movie, actually understands the Zelda timeline, Jeff Pierce, the actual Shinobi, Jasonic the Kid, Jeff the Game Boy Ferris, he is Error, Jeff Russell, Jeremy Jarvis, here for the Pog Talk, Jeremy Matson, and the Order of No Quarter. Joe actually plays his games, Champity, Video Game Art Collector, because video games are art, Justin Chicchio, Strands Type Game, Chris Shipley. What a horrible night to have living in bits. Nick the Video Game Database Morgan, thank you for that Ninja Gaiden you sent me, super nice. Homebrew Mastermind Vertov, Off the Map, NZ Collector, the primary guy who collects Korean releases, Peaceful Games, Dungeon Master, Reed Stubenik, the promoter, Retro RPG Podcast, Sean the Video Game Illuminati LaCroix, Halo, Sean Razine, Tex, who collects for Jaguar, Zaventorian, he knows all 97 Nintendo games, 32 bits or less, do the math, Andrew actually collecting N-Gage O, the unusually rare Andy Hagens, Ben Parker, a bad enough dude to rescue the president, Chesno, all your base art belong to him, Colby, he is Sinistar, Corhagen does what Nintendo don't, Daniel McArdle, who thought this was the Retronauts Patreon, the Modern Database, Danny Gomez, Dara Sadat. Welcome to Die, the Philatelist Dork Overlord, the official biggest PlayStation fan, Game-Rave.com, Rip and Tear, Jackson Keebler, he is 8-Bit, John Brown, Joseph Rogers got 50,000 on Double Dragon, Collector of Everything, including Atari, Kalen McAteer, Video Game Console Modding Guy, MP3, Sam, Sega Mark III Marks, and Hedgemon of the Geek Empire, Valdor the Great. Thank you guys so much.